Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Let me just let everybody in. Morning, Emily. um, she chatted, so I want to make sure that people who chat feel included. Um, as you know, it always takes a couple minutes for everybody to get in. We started a couple minutes late. At the last minute, I couldn't connect to the internet and I had to restart everything. But luckily, it's good on my end now. So, good morning again, everybody. Shoo, I don't know about you, but I'm just exhausted. I mean, really, this is only the 1/3 mark for the semester. If you're feeling exhausted too, I don't even have to imagine because I feel just like you. The good news is today's material I find really very interesting. It's got some of my favorite exercises. I have a number of short things that I want to talk to you about before we launch in today's new material. Um, Last time we saw each other, the newest flavor on the block was classic tweening. And today, I'm going to devote most of the class to classic tweening. Um, I just want to say you have frame by frame animation. And by the way, a couple of you guys are just really good at it. I think a couple people have been kind of working with frame by frame logic even before you arrived. Others just started this semester and are really getting the hang of it. Um, so it all starts with frame by frame, right? And then once you move into tweening, there are three different kinds of tweening, and each one of them has a role. We tried shape tweening, and I think most of you thought it was pretty cool, but I do want to mention why we're not going to go further into it. Um, Shape tweening has some of the advantages that the other flavors of tweening are. Um, it does have the special quality of being able to change shape. But as I mentioned to you last time I saw you, most objects don't change shape. The car rides down the street, it's not really a new shape. It might tilt back from force, that we could still do, but it isn't going to turn into a horse and buggy. You know, so shape tweening has a lot of limits, and I will probably bring it back here and there when it seems like the best choice. Classic tweening is where we came up. Now I want to say something about that. First off, let's get one thing out of the way, just to isolate that term tweening. First off, if anyone's still guessing what a keyframe is, you're behind, right? Just got to be blunt. Keyframes, the black dots. So the hollow dot means you could draw at that moment in time, a little circle on the timeline. But once it's black, there's artwork there. All the tweening is this sort of logic. Hang on a second here. There would be a keyframe representing this position of this object in time. Maybe 5 frames later, because these things, that's going to fall fast. Nowhere near a second. One Mississippi, right? So it's going to just be a few frames. A few frames later, the magic marker's in this hand. Here it's up here. A few frames later, another keyframe. The fall, in my opinion, should only be done in a tween. I mean, if you're really frame by framing this, you're wasting a tremendous amount of time, right? So I want to say frame by frame thinking should be saved for things that a computer can't understand a tween moment. Folks, let me just glance at the chats, make sure people saying hello. Cool. I just jump right into it. Um, so key moments, tweening is what goes on in between. When it comes to frame by frame, though, like if I drew a hand like this, right, and then a few frames later I drew it like this, there's no way the computer's going to understand what to do with all those fingers, where the joints are, and how that should be treated. That's probably a good place for frame by frame. But so much isn't. So today I want to focus on classic tweening, and I do want to be very blunt. It's the one I do the most. It's fast, it's flexible, it could help you make money, it could help you keep your creative energy for thinking and imagining and moving forward rather than taking forever just to make something move a little bit, right? So classic tweening. I want to just say a couple quick things too before we move forward. First off, let me just mention about grades. So Blackboard is up to date. As of yesterday, I checked again just to see if there were revisions, and there were several revisions. So by the way, those of you who do revisions on the homework, I got to give you a thumbs up. I mean, I had somebody got 100 and did a revision. You know, obviously doing it for their own fulfillment. They weren't doing it for a higher grade. But I would say this, when you hand in work on time, you can give me a revision anytime. You've earned the right to do a revision. If you do the work late, just do it once and put it in the late folder. But your Blackboard grades are up, right? Does anybody have any questions about Blackboard or anything like that? I didn't think so. You're all used to it, I would hope, at least to some degree. So you should check that grade soon. I want to just add one more thing historically about this class. You know, at the beginning of the semester, I kind of made a casual challenge that we should all, I'm hoping that this is the best animation class that I've had since I've been teaching it at this school. Um, and I'm not making this up. It's so far it is, isn't it, Tiffany? Tiffany's been around the block with me here. So I really want to congratulate you on that. But I just want to mention for anybody who may feel insecure about it, the homeworks are the largest part of your grade. There's probably going to be about 8, right? Which basically means skipping 1 is a real problem. It brings in 0 into your average, and you really don't want that averaged in. So if anyone's behind on the homework, I'm still collecting it. Just have a look with me for a minute. This may help. I'm screen sharing. Today's handout. You know, actually, I wanted to show you something else. Yeah, there's a new homework today. I'm just going to use this to get into Google Drive. So there's only been 2 homeworks so far, right? That's class 2 and class 3. If you're behind in either one, at this point, I'm still accepting either one, but you do have to put it in the late folder. Notice this one's closed. Later today, I'm going to close this one. But if it's the late folder and revisions, I check weekly. All right. I want to drop that subject. I want to tell you what's going to happen a little bit more particularly today. First off, I do want to include more drawing techniques. It's been on my mind heavily. You know, this particular class, I've avoided lengthy time spent on drawing because it's animation. The class is animation. It's about movement. How do you make things move? Naturally, you got to draw it to make it move, but I just didn't want to sacrifice a lot of time. But the more we've done it, the little bits we've done, the more encouraged I feel that it can be integrated into the class. So today I want to do a little bit more drawing to prepare for some elaborate classic tweening. Before we get there though, I want to share something with you. 2 things. One, our first exercise, we're going to make a cube, right? So we're kind of implying 3 dimensions. It's not a 3D program, but we're going to imply it. So rather than just drawing a square, we're going to draw a cube. I'm looking near me to see if I've got a cube near me. I mean, maybe I'll grab one just before we get started. But it so happens. So we're going to take that cube, we're going to turn it, we're going to make it live. You know, it's going to rattle before it does things to help people anticipate that it wants to do something. It might squash down because it's going to leap. We're going to do the self-propelled cube. Squashes down, right? Stretches, leaps into the air. So it's going to be a lot of classic tweening as well as drawing. But it so happens, probably the most famous instructional video for animators also uses a cube. I want to mention a couple things to you. This is the Animator Survival Kit. This book is amazing. If you love animation, get this book at some point, right? It's like a Bible for animators. Have any of you seen this before? Maybe a couple people. I know Tiffany's in love with her. She brought it to class before. I want to tell you something about this book. For one, I want to give you an example. It's got very detailed sketches to talk about different kinds of movement. It's fantastic for walk cycles, which we're going to do. running, which we're not going to do, but all kinds of ways of seeing even the nuances of how a big person walks, as opposed to a skinny person, and on and on. It's just incredible. This person's worked on so many movies. The resume is like miles long, but it's also highly related to what I want to show you now. This animation's linking from today's handout. I think a lot of you are going to want to see it repeatedly. To be honest, if you watched it once a day for the next few years, you'd still be learning. The whole thing's like 2 minutes long, I think. Let's check this out because a lot of these themes are coming into play today and throughout the semester. So here we go. Just skipping a little forward on this because I just changed my mind about the order to go in.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of a scene. Follow through and overlap. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose. Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. Arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add more dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses slow and smooth the action. Fewer drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wilder, more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
I want to say a couple quick things about this. So there's 12 principles on that list, and I'm thinking most animators are aware of them, and you don't have to agree with every single one. So I just want to be really clear about something. This is a very Disney-like kind of set of aspects of motion, the 12 principles. Everybody likes talking about the 12 principles, and depending on your kind of work, you're going to adopt them to different degrees. For example, exaggeration. If the roadrunner is running off of somebody's running off a cliff in an animation, and it looks up, it looks down, and then it finally looks down before it falls. A very exaggerated phenomena. Would you do that necessarily in a movie made for adults? I'm not really sure, but it's good to be aware of the 12 principles. I want to watch it one more time with you. This time, I want to comment on how it affects us. These artists lived frame by frame, right? And really, what I want to do is I want to take these ideas and move them into tweening starting today. So I want to point out the ones that are most important. And I would want to repeat one thing. It's short. The link is on today's handout. You could copy it to your favorites. I would watch it repeatedly. If there's a part or two that interests you most, just keep going back to it. Really kind of study it. So I want to comment on the things that are going to affect us most today. So give me one moment.
Professor, is this covered in that book that you mentioned?
You know, the principles are sort of embedded in the logic of that book. It's not actually, I don't believe it lists them at any point in time. Tiffany, am I wrong about that? Tiffany, are you there? You could chat if you're having internet problems today.
I'm I'm here. I'm here.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. There's a lot written about it all over the internet, though.
Like they show you everything basically that it talks about in the book,
Right,
but I'm not sure if they really specifically say this is this.
right.
It's called The Foundations of Animation, the book. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, the book that I showed you,
Yeah,
this book,
the Animator Survival Kit. Cool. Thank you.
folks, listen, can I tell you something? One more thing about this. The book's really expensive. You know, our community's not that big, you know, so it's expensive, but there's used copies everywhere. So if you're not shy about buying used, like on Amazon, for example, they'll always offer used, just go used. The book, what's the difference, you know? And you can get yourself a good copy. You know, I wanted to say it's a little intimidating because the guy's talent level is just absurd. He kind of understands physics so well. He's a bit like a scientist, but he loves cartoons and the body. So a lot of it is about the body specifically. You know, walking, for example, learning, we're going to do walking. And in this particular class, we'll make people walk. I think one or two of you already can do it, right? So those of you who are advanced in any area, the challenge is going to be to outdo yourself. The rest of us, just to get someone to walk is enough. But then what if a week later you want someone to walk who's incredibly tired? You know, what's that going to look like? You know, as opposed to like somebody who's like revved up, full of caffeine. So this book is just incredible. Sometimes just staring at the drawings helps you project uh, so many things that can affect you with your style and your set of motives. So I highly
Professor, does
recommend.
the illusion of life talk about it?
You know, I'm
It
not
does. Yeah,
familiar.
that's where this whole thing came
Yeah,
from.
yeah. Well, the Illusion of Life video. You know, is there an Illusion of Life book? I'm not really sure if there's a
Yeah,
book
there's a book.
with the same name. So
That's
I have not.
it's like it's a Disney one.
Yeah, I think I've been shy about getting it because I'm not a big Disney fan. You know, this guy's worked on so many kinds of animation, and by the way, he knows every famous name in animation. He's constantly sharing tricks from his friends and colleagues in the book. So, you know, again, just one last time, if again, I'm talking too much, so I don't want to do it. But if someone, Tiffany, could you just chat this so the record's there for anyone who wants to check it out later? The Animator Survival Kit. All right. I want to watch this one more time. Again, we're going to launch into this very soon. I want to comment on what matters to us most today in this Illusion of Life video.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch.
First off, this is one of the most important parts of this video. Squash and stretch. I want to point something out. Even though I've made the argument that objects don't change shape typically when they're moving, you know, especially my hard coffee mug, right? In an animation, if it does, say it hits the floor and it squashes before it cracks, it just brings a level of life to it. You know, anima basically is about life, you know, and I forget the exact translation of it, but squash and stretch just brings life. Watch what they do. We're going to be doing it today, so you'll get a hands-on feeling for it.
This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major.
All right. So squashing, stretching, we could still do even with a classic tween. The object is changing shape from a certain perspective, but it's not turning into a circle, right? It's just stretching. We could stretch it, we could squash it. That we could do with any of the kinds of tweening. I want to say something about anticipation, which is very, very sophisticated, really. One of the biggest issues with the homeworks is that very often something you're excited about happens before your audience is ready. So especially those of you who've been dabbling with scenes in the logic of your homework, a sudden close-up or a completely different environment in a following scene. You have to give someone some way of being prepared for the big event. So let's see how this video explores anticipation. We're going to use it today, squash and stretch and anticipation.
Major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen.
So before that box flips, look, if that box just went, for one, your audience would miss it. They wouldn't care, right? If the box does this, what's going on? Blah. It's a completely different effect. I mean, really, even in acting, it's going to be the same kind of logic. And by the way, sometimes the anticipation is the easiest part. Why not? Sometimes it's just letting something sit on screen long enough for people to care about it.
Staging.
The least important and the most obvious, it's just saying be clear about what you're doing. I'm not quite sure why they put that on the list. Did anyone think that being unclear was better? I don't know. They weren't even sure how to animate it.
It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene.
I want to say something right away about pose to pose logic. One luxury we have is we're not being told how long the animations need to be, right? We're letting ourselves breathe as we discover what goes on. But if you knew, look, this is a 10-second spot, right? And your whole thing has to be told in 10 seconds, right? You can't go chewing your way forward. It's like, oh, the object's going this way, then they pick this thing up, then some event happens, and your 10 seconds are over, right? So pose to pose is definitely a way of dealing with the amount of time you have. This has to happen. A little while later, I got to get here. It's possible on team, someone else is going to do what goes on in between. Today, we're not doing pose to pose. We're going to do the other one straight ahead. So you'll take a look and see what I mean.
Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of a scene.
I just want to say something about that. Straight ahead, for me anyway, is easier, right? And I've heard animators talk about that, where you're just letting your intuition figure out what should happen as your story unfolds. How this person should move at what speed, and what should take longer and what shouldn't as you go forward. It's very organic, is the term people use. Unfortunately, one has to figure out a combination of logic of pre-planning. I've got to get here by frame 20, for some reason, and that's a little less intuitive, so I think we're each going to have our own opinions about this soon enough.
Follow through and overlap. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the actions...
We started this already. Do you remember ease in and ease out from last week? We're going to be using it again. So they called it slow in, slow out. We call it easing, ease in and ease out. We're going to be going over that.
We have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next.
More drawings. So more drawings are slower because I've got all this detail. And remember when we really very early in the class, we made things accelerate. And I kept on saying, okay, let's start. I didn't use the word anticipation then, but I meant it. Let's start by going at a constant slow speed. So the person notices the object. Then I said, when you start to accelerate, notice the way each frame moved forward and go a little further. Then the next frame even further, and the next frame even further. So the stride kept getting larger, which made the guy faster. So essentially, really, when the thing was at its fastest, it had the least drawings. And that's when we were doing frame by frame. But now we're moving into tweening. So how does this affect us? More frames, not more drawings, just more frames. If there's more frames, that is going to be slower. So they're further apart on the timeline. There's more frames. If they're closer on the timeline, it's faster. So the logic is similar. You could replace the word drawings with frames, and the logic is still true.
Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add more dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses, slow and...
So you notice when he talks about timing, it's very similar to several of the other points the person's making, right? And listen, I've been very excited by the homework this class has done. Really, just about everybody's brought some personality to the table. No two of them are alike. But almost everybody's animating in a hurry. And I think that's because we're still thinking like frame by frame people, where how many drawings can I do in a homework, right? I think with the classic tweening, maybe we'll get a little more luxurious about how we use time. You know, Obama, our old president, who I quite miss even today, he knew about timing. You know, whenever he said something important, he slowed down. You know, and then he would get you all excited. Yeah, you know, in America, you know, we're aiming for, and then he slow down again. You know, so the timing is so important. If everything's at an equal pace or too quick, you're gonna, you know, no one's gonna care. So timing's really important. We're gonna
smooth the action.
work
Fewer
with that.
drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wild or more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
I missed that last one, Professor. What's the charisma of the action?
Yeah, let's back up a little.
Sorry.
You know, frankly, that one's really very general. What is charisma with a person? You know, so the thing is that if it feels dry, it is dry. You know, and you could even exaggerate that. You know, the person who won't give you the bank loan in your animation, yeah, no, zero charisma. You know, on the other hand, you know, so they're treating that box like a ballerina to like point out like what it is that we find attractive.
Of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, just want to mention something about this notion of the charisma of the action, and I don't want to really like offend anybody, but we, you know, when we in conversation use the word charisma, we're usually talking about someone you like. You know, oh, they come to the party and the whole tempo raises. Everybody's so excited by this person's presence, their charisma. But the truth of it is, Adolf Hitler had charisma. You know, and a recent president, Dangerous Man, had charisma for a lot of people. Maybe not for most of us in New York. So even if you're doing a monster, you know, and in your animation, you know, it's supposed to be scary. One could see that as just personality energy. You know, if you don't like the word charisma, you know, it's just about having, you know, the personalities just sort of emanating from that character. Right now, I'm going to be focusing on everything to do with motion, really, right now. Anticipation interests me because I've seen the need for it in the homework. All the issues of timing, again, because I saw issues in the homework, you know. And today I have a great exercise for you that's also with a cube, very similar to this, but ours is going to be tweened. Okay, folks, again, please save that link. It really is worth studying. It's a priceless couple of minutes, you know, on 3 minutes tops. All right, let's open Animate. So folks, listen, remember, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. Just turn on your mic and interrupt me. Tiffany generally watches the chats for us. If you can turn your camera on without slowing down your zoom or any of the other things, please do turn it on, right? If you can't, I understand. One reason I look forward to this class is we do have conversation and we do bring a human element to the class. It's a little harder when 12 people have the cameras off and only 8 have them on. So if you can handle it, please do turn it on. If not, I'm going to assume you have a really good reason. All right. I want to go over just some basic stuff, tweening, classic tweening, just to warm us up. Then I want to start drawing our cubes so we could just deal with like the logic of our drawing tools one more time. Then we're going to animate our own cube. All right. So first, let's just go over tweening. So I'm going to ask you if you're in Animate to do File Menu New. I'm just getting people used to that method. Of course, we could have used this new button right here. And I think what I want to do is, do I want to use this? I think I'd like the width to be a little bit larger. So we've been using 640 wide by 480 tall. I'm going to ask you to change the width to 800. So I'm making an 800. This is always measured in pixels, 800 pixels wide. It's going to be fairly landscape shaped, 480 tall. As always in my class, the frame rate is 24. 800 wide, 480 tall, 24 frame rate. All right, to be able to move forward, I want to go over some basic ideas about classic tweening first. So join me on something simple. I'd like for everybody to put a smallish rectangle in the lower left corner. Now, classic tween is everything today. So the first thing with a classic tween is that object has to be turned into a symbol. The one thing I would like really ask you to do is get in the habit of making a symbol right away, right? So select it. Now you might remember if there's a stroke, you'll have to double click it or just drag over it from nearby. Make sure you don't forget the stroke. Mine doesn't have one. Once it's selected, control click it or right click and choose convert to symbol. You'll notice there's a little handout on that menu. So you control click the artwork that you selected or you right click it. But it says F8 down there. A lot of us need the FN key to use that, but if you prefer F8, by all means. Give it a name. I'm just calling it box. Now here's where it gets important. The type is graphic. There are 3 types. We'll get around to talking about at least movie clip later on. We're going to need it. But right now we want graphic. Be sure it's graphic and click OK. On your right is the properties palette. We've been using this all semester, but there's a little tab right next to the word properties called library. Now we did this last week for the first time, right? So I'm just reviewing right now. The library can be opened and closed from your window menu in case you ever lose it. So you should see box in there. Take note of what the little symbol looks like. That means graphic symbol, that little icon in there. It's important that you get to know the icons. All right, you prepared the artwork, simply enough. Now, the next step would be on the timeline. So go to the first black keyframe, control click again, and turn on your classic tween. Please don't use motion tween. We are going to explore it later in the semester. This one is awesome. We're going to give it a lot of time. Great classic tween. The last couple versions of this program gave you a certain amount of tweened frames automatically. Notice it stops right at 24. It's probably looking at our frame rate and giving us 1 second's worth, right? Thing is, the animation we're going to do is likely to be much longer. So I want to remind you about the power of F5. One critical notion is what's the difference between a keyframe and plane frames? Keyframes can have drawings. Plane frames do not. Plane frames are just time. So if I'm sitting here, the first frame's got me in it, it's a keyframe. And it's a black keyframe because there's artwork in it. But if I continue just to sit, there'll be many plane frames after while I'm just sitting there. So F5 makes plane frames. What I'd like you to do is go out to 3 seconds, which happens to be frame 72, and use F5. Now, I need for everyone to remember if you need the FN key, the function key, or not. Now, if the function key doesn't help you and you can't use F5 at all, you could go out to 3 seconds and instead, there's numerous ways, right? You could control click or right click in the frame and just choose insert frame. That is F5, plain old frames. Shuying, last week you couldn't use the F keys. Am I right about that? Or was it just some of them?
Just some of them. I think maybe it's my computer's problem because I found there has the keyboard in my computer had changed.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to keep my eye on that and try to give you suggestions that you might like. This version of Animate offers us more choices than it used to have. So I think I'm going to, I don't want to confuse people, but for your sake, I am going to show you other ways to introduce frames as we move along. You're welcome. Okay, so you got this long timeline. Can you bring the playhead back? You got 3 seconds. All right. The way classic tweening works, if you just move the playhead, right, you could then move the artwork and watch it make the keyframes for you. So this is what I'm looking for now. Let's go about, let's go out to frame 40. And I want to point something out. You could just drag the playhead for this. So if you bring the playhead over to frame 40, or you just say, click up here where the time ruler is, that's also good. Or even if you click inside the layer itself, that's all good. However you get us to frame 40 is fine. Now in classic tweening, it does this amazing thing. It looks at the playhead first, then it lets you move the artwork. So let's drag that artwork across to the right side. Look closely at your timeline. There's a black keyframe there. So that basically means frame 1, you know, had artwork in it. Now frame 40 has artwork in it. In between is just a long arrow. If you bring the playhead back and play it, right, we could see what happened. It went to frame 40, and then it sat there, right? Because after it, there's no more motion. It's just sitting there with plain frames. Now, I'm hoping everybody's good and awake, right? It's Friday morning, right? And I'm starting kind of slow. We're going to go very, very deep today, right? I'm going to do this again, I promise. I just want to talk up a couple other aspects of this. What if we wanted to make a change? So that object is going, would anyone like me to just do that again? I'll do it real quickly. All right, so I'm assuming you're good if you don't ask. All right, what about making it more complex?
Sorry, can you do that again, please?
Yeah, I'm going to do it again. Guys, if you already have it, you can just leave your timeline the way that it is, right? So just real quickly, I am suggesting a very wide screen for this. So I did file menu new first. And instead of using 640 by 480 like we've been, I changed the width to 1000. So it's wider shape. 480 here, 24 here. I got this big screen. All right, I asked everyone to put a rectangle down here in the lower left, and I'm going over the main steps. Step 1, turn the artwork into a symbol. So let's select it with the black arrow. Make sure you've got your strokes if you have any. Then control click or right click. There are other ways. Control click or right click and choose convert to symbol. Give it a name. And make sure it says graphic under type. All right, that was all step 1. Make it a symbol. Step 2, turn on classic tweening from the layer. Now, I want you to be more specific. That keyframe, it's going to tween from there. So we go to the keyframe on the layer, right down here, and we right click or control click, and now we ask for classic tween. So step 1 was on the artwork. Step 2 was on the keyframe. You turned on classic tween. The next step is to take a guess how long you need. Now I asked everyone to go out to 3 seconds. So I'm going to do it again. You click on your layer at the 3-second mark. That's frame 72. Here it says 3 seconds. And you use F5. I'm very concerned that people get the hang of F5. You know, if you hate shortcuts, you could have gone out to 3 seconds and right-clicked or control-clicked. Choose insert frame.
On a Mac, is it Command F5?
No.
It,
You probably need your FN key, Mikey. Have you been using your function key the last few weeks?
No, I've been using just like my right clicks.
And you right-clicking?
Yeah.
So why don't you try the FN approach? On your Mac, find the FN key. It's probably the lower left corner. Hold that down and then tap F5. So you click in the frame of the layer
Yeah.
where you want to extend that, the amount of time to. So I went to 3-second mark in layer 1. Then you need to hold down FN on a lot of Macs and
Cool.
tap the F5 key. Okay.
And then it goes segment by segment. Is that right? Or
I don't know, what is it? What do you mean?
like it goes frame by frame. Like you can hold it down and it'll go super fast, or you can just tap it if you want to go like 2 screens ahead.
You should have just tapped once.
Okay.
Mikey, take a
I'll play
look at
around
this.
with
Can you take a look at this for a second? I'm
Yeah.
going to Command Z this. So this is only at 1 second. It gave me that by default when I turned on the tween. I'm going out to 3 seconds and I have to click in the frame. If your computer requires the FN, that's when you hold it down, but you tap F5 once. Just once.
I'll play around with it.
You know what, Mikey? I think I need to see it. We're not going to be able to move forward, right? I don't know what you mean by we're not making keyframes at all. Oh, I see. Are you in a situation where you can't screen share?
Yeah, I'm working. See,
You
that's
might
what I was telling you about last week. My laptop, my keyboard was broken, so I'm working off like 2 different computers.
got it. So,
I'm
Mikey,
like,
I am going to have to leave it to you then.
okay, no
I
worries.
can't
No
see
worries.
a thing when you turn the camera on it.
No problem.
All right.
Thank you, though.
All right. You're welcome. So this is really important. There should be no additional keyframes at all. There's only one in frame 1. You know, the artwork there is sitting in the corner, and we haven't yet chosen any new locations. We just gave it a 3-second lifespan. So what I'm asking you to do at this stage is to go out to frame 40. And why am I doing that? I'm asking you to establish when it's going to arrive here. So our goal is, we know we want it to get to the other corner, and I'm guessing that I want 1.5 seconds roughly, you know, close to 2, right? So I'm going to click in here, right? And then I simply drag the artwork. Then we rewind and play it. All right, folks. So what I like about this, though, is you can get more complicated with it. I want one bounce against the ceiling. Right now, we got a plain old slide, but it's not really what I want. I'd like to go halfway and establish that it goes here. So instead of going across, it's going to go up and then down. But the thing about tweening, it's so wonderful, is you get to keep on adapting it. You don't have to start over. So if it reached that corner by frame 40, halfway would be frame 20. Could you go to frame 20? Now, if you don't like numbers, just drag your playhead until you see it in the middle. At this stage, I would like it to be in the middle, but on the ceiling. So you're finding frame 20, thereabouts, and then you're dragging it up to the top. I'd like you to notice there's a 3rd keyframe now. The first one's on the left. The next one's on frame 20 and it hit the ceiling. The last one's on frame 40 where we left it. So if you rewind and play, you've got this. Life does this all the time. Just about everything's just moving from place to place, you know, and especially if it's a mechanical object, it might not have limbs. It's just about getting position and timing right. I want to take this further, though, because the thing I don't like about it is it's very robotic, right? And easing was talked about in today's movie that we watched, and we did start it last week. So I want to go over easing right now, right? Ease in means start slow. And that's often conservative advice, right? Start slow and then speed up. But not only that, it's the way most objects move. You know, keep in mind that if you like driving fast, you still start at 0 miles per hour. You're passing through 1 mile per hour. You're always starting slow to get to maximum speed. All right, let's try that out in the first half of our segment. How do you ease in? I want you to click here in between these 2 keyframes. So you're in the first segment of your animation. You're clicking between the 2 keyframes, and then you're going to the properties palette. Now I want to be sure you're not clicking up here or anywhere else. In this purple bar that represents the tween, I'm clicking between the first black dot and the second one. Now if you look on the right side, on the properties palette, there's a whole area devoted to tweening. It says ease, effect, classic ease. I want you to click on the button that says Classic Ease. Click right on it. Now, we've been here before, but just last week. And then if you look at this column that showed up, here is ease in. Remember, that means start slowly. This column here is establishing how slowly does it start and how fast does it pick up. Quad is the most subtle. Cubic is more extreme. Chord is even more extreme. Notice how this line shows you a concave kind of shape. Here's cubic, here's quad. Let's try chord on this one and hit return or enter. Now what's going to go on is this segment here is going to have different speed than the segment on the other side of the bounce on the ceiling. Just play it. So if you notice, when you play the first part, it starts slowly and then it speeds up. I hope you guys can see it. Ease in. Thing is, when something bounces off of an object, right, it actually takes off fast, right? To have that feeling of having bounced off of something. I want to try the opposite on the other side. We'll see if it works. I want to try ease out. So ease out means slow down at the end, right? So you're actually starting fast and slowing down. So I want you to click now on the second half between the second keyframe and the third one, or I should say the second keyframe and the last keyframe. So click right in that purple bar. Again, go to the properties palette and click on where it says classic ease. I want to try ease out, and I'm going to use chord again and hit return. I'd like you to rewind and play it. I hope you could feel it. You know, it might help for us to explore those speeds to see if how you feel about them, right? So if you want to change your speeds, you could do it anytime you want. You're easing. Click again on the left side between those two keyframes. Go over to where it says now the kind of easing you're using and click it to change it. I still want ease in over there. I'm talking about the first one. But that's chord. Quint is more extreme. Sine is a whole different thing. I could tell from the shape over here, right? So I think I'm going to stop at quint. I'm going to click again, try another one. All right, what about this? Or this? Or this? This one looks pretty extreme. Here's what quad looks like. You can see it's subtle, the line. It's concave, right? And now I'm going to come down here. Whoa, I don't want that. I'm going to try circ right now. That should be pretty intense. I'm curious if it is. So it's really up to how you feel about it. You know, you want to try to feel it and explore those different speeds. All right. I want to do this just one last time, and then we're going to take on something kind of big. Okay. Can everyone open up another document? And this time I want to do something slightly different. So file menu, new. Let's go back to standard for a minute. Standard size, which is 640 by 480, and the frame rate of 24. I want to go over a small exercise from last week. It gives me a chance to talk about more stuff that's on the table right now. Could everybody join me by putting a rectangle up here in the top left corner? Now we're sticking now, no drawing hardly at all, right? We're just focusing on classic tweens. Got a brand new stage. Please be sure you're joining me, right? You put an object in the top left corner. Step one, make it a symbol. So select it, control click or right click and make it a symbol. Please give it a name. Each animation has its own library. So I'm using the same name. This library is going to be empty. And it's a graphic symbol. I click OK. The next step, you go right to that keyframe and turn on the classic tween. So this is art type stuff. This is time stuff. So right now we're going to the first keyframe and we're going to turn on classic tween. That was step two. the next step that I recommend is guess at the length of time you want. Let's just go out to 2 seconds this time. Actually, let's go out to frame 60. Now, all we're doing is this. Now, Mikey, I want to say something. I just understood your earlier question. There are times when I'll F5 in a frame just to create one frame. But if you F5 a mile away, right, a mile away, it takes care of everything before it. So I'm not going to go make a frame here, make a frame here, make a frame here, make a frame here. I'm just going straight to 60. And now I'm going to F5 it.
Thank
So I
you.
didn't have to go to each one of these. It just dawned on me what you meant. All right, so we established the amount of time we think we need. We can make it longer or shorter later. Now, the next thing that I want to point out to you is a critical idea. By the way, it's all over other programs, not just this program, and almost every kind of tweening. Where the playhead is becomes critical now, right? Where you put the playhead is the next important thing. Now, I want to tell you what we're going to do. Every 15 frames, the object, do you remember this from last week? 15 frames to the right corner, 15 frames to the bottom, 15 frames to the bottom left, right? And then the last 15 to get back home. So frame 1, 15, 30, 45, it gets home by 60, right? All right. So that basically means you want to go to frame 15 now, right? You don't have to click in the layer. You could, or you could just drag the playhead. That's just as good. Then drag the artwork to the right. The critical idea is there is you chose the moment in the layer first, the moment in time. When you drag the artwork there, it knew what you meant. You're changing location in time. You just created a slide across the ceiling. Then you go to frame 30 because 15 frames later, you want it to arrive here. So first you're telling it when. You go to frame 30 and then drag it down. We're going by 15s right now. So I'm going to go to frame 45, right? Just a little more than half a second. And I'm going to drag it over to the left. Since I want to make a full round trip, I'm going to go to the last available frame, 60, and drag it up. When you play, you can see it's a very elegant way to make things move. We're going to be using it like mad. So I'm being very kind of thorough right now, right? We want to do something with a lot more life today. Did it work? All
Yes.
right. Now remember, because of that logic, you could do anything you want between those keyframes. So before we do that, I think I want to do just one. Let's say, it starts sliding on the ceiling, right? But what if you wanted it to go like this, slightly diagonal, and then up? So you want to establish the first keyframe. You could see that the next keyframe arrives in the right. So if you don't like that kind of movement, you want it to be more elaborate. You want it to dip in the middle. Bring the playhead to the middle and simply drag it down a little bit. It added a keyframe for that position. You can rewind and play it to see. You made the symbol. Now, all of these objects on stage have a name. They're all called instances. The original is seen as the one that's in your library, and it's still sitting there by itself. But every keyframe we just made, each one houses an instance of the symbol. That sounds very nerdy, but that is the language, right? You could think of them as clones. They're all clones. I want to do a quick thing with you, though. They're all dependent on this one in the library. So if you want to change yours, you open the library one and make changes. I'm going to do that right now. I'd like you to take a look at your library. So if you're looking at the properties palette, the library tab's next to it. There it says box, and it's got the graphic icon. Could you double click that icon with me? Folks, this is new, right? So we're going to the library, we're double clicking that icon. What that did was it left the movie temporarily, right? So I was in the movie a moment ago, but I went to the library and I double clicked the actor because I want to go to the dressing room. When you double click something in the library, you're going to what I call the dressing room. The proper name is symbol editing mode. right? You don't like the symbol anymore, right? So you want to make a change. Don't move it, don't animate it, just make it look different. So here's some examples. You could, if it's selected, deselect it. Here it's editable. So you could do the old stuff that we learned on week 1. You could even add stuff to it if you want. I'm going to go get the oval tool right now. And I'm adding stuff. You could even punch a hole in it. I want to mention about holes. We did a lot of this early in the semester, but I want to mention again. If I took an object of a different color and put it inside here, once I click away, that owns those pixels, which means I could use it to create a hole. I might want a red dot, but if I don't, I click it and I've got a hole. And repeat that one just quickly. We noticed early that objects of different colors take bites out of each other. So I'm using that logic to make something that looks like the shape I want for a hole. I'm making the oval a different color. I'm going to pull it over here. Now, while it's selected, I still have the freedom to move it. So that's kind of nice. But the moment I deselect it, next time I move it, this happens. So I made a hole. Now look, some of you guys love to draw. This is where you're going to do the drawing, right? So if it's a car that's tweening all over the place, this is where you give it a pinstripe and some windows or whatever you want to add. By the way, we're going to do a car this semester, you know, and learn how to make the wheels turn as it tweens, right? So we're just getting ready. All right, when you're done in symbol editing mode, the big question is, how do I get back to the movie? So if you look in the upper left, it's telling you the name of the symbol you're editing. Remember, you double clicked it in the library, right? So this is the name you gave it. And next to it's an arrow. Can you click that arrow in the upper left to get back to your movie?
Oh, Professor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Because this sounds so useful. Like when I was trying to scale things, you know, you would have to do it frame by frame. Is this a way of doing that? Do I have to turn it into a symbol to do that?
I would no. Well, it's definitely tweening scale is the easiest by a long shot. Any object that's already a symbol can be tweened to any size at any point in time. We'll do it. Let's just do it. Let's do it with what we have. Okay. So, and again, guys, really, Jennifer, it's nice to hear from you. I want to invite you and everybody in here to ask questions when they're on your mind. We're going to do some scaling. So first off, though, I want you to notice the larger point. When you edited the symbol in the library, every instance of it changed. That means there's an instance living in every black keyframe, and they all changed, which is pretty cool. So if you play the animation now, this is what you get. Now I want to answer Jennifer's very timely question, really, right? How do I scale? Now, scale is very exciting. Human nature really, really reacts when something suddenly gets big, right? And, you know, you could see why, right? So we want to take advantage of that. I want to point out this, though. You could only do it on an instance, right? So that's artwork. And another way to put it is in a keyframe. So I'd like for you to get all the way to this keyframe, the one that represents the artwork down here. And the reason I'm choosing it is this already has some action going on. You know, it dips, it comes to the corner, but there's not much doing on its slide down. I think it'd be better if it gets big as it slides. So you're going to frame 30 because there's a keyframe there, right? And then I'd like you to switch to this tool. The free transform tool uses the letter Q as a shortcut to get to it, but you should recognize that tool. Simply grab a corner and scale. If you want it in proportion, you could hold down Shift, but you might not want it in proportion. You know, that would make it feel a little bit like you're changing the shape. That's up to you. Right now, I'm just talking about scale. So this is where I was. I got the free transform tool. You can't do it in a tween. You have to be on a keyframe. But I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to make mine huge. I want to show you something. That's not even big enough for my taste, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to get crazy with it. Now that should be interesting. I'm doing Command Return to show you a preview. Now that was interesting. I absolutely love what the white hole does when it scales up. Jennifer, did that answer your question?
I actually don't think I phrased it correctly, but I did learn something there. I'm talking about, let's say I made, like last time I made a rocket ship, but halfway through my design, I wanted to change the size of it, of the whole entire thing, not just in one frame. So can I go back into the dressing room and adjust the thing for the whole entire nation? Okay.
Yes, that would definitely be the smartest way, very smartest way, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Mikey. These are good questions, good comments. Yeah.
Sorry if this is backtracking at all, but let's say we had like a design that you wanted pasted on the background, like let's say an ocean, for instance, with like, you know, seaweed or something. Once you animate that, you lock it and loop it, and then you can do this kind of work on top of it.
You would I'm sorry, there's something going on over here. All right. So background artwork would just be a lower layer.
And you would, but do you have to lock it to make sure that this tweening doesn't affect?
You wouldn't have to, but you would be wise to. And so what I want to do today is I do want to do something with the background. You know, where we're headed is, so we're going to draw this cube, and it's not going to dance around like it did in Illusion of Life, but it's going to be rather lifelike. It's going to squash to anticipate that it wants to leap. Then it's going to leap in the air, create more anticipation by not coming down. Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. Where is it? Bam. And it's going to squash and stretch, right? But it'll look more interesting with a horizon line behind it. So we're going to create a wall and a floor. So there's some kind of space for all that to exist in. So that's a simple way to get used to what you're talking about. But since Mikey brings it up, on a lower layer, I could bring in a photograph if I want. I could bring in artwork made in any which way I want. I could draw it all I want. I could use multiple layers for my background, which I'll often do. You know, sky and ground, then buildings, then trees, depending on how you like to organize. All right, let's move forward though. I need to get a little momentum for everybody. So that was scale. I want to go over the properties right now, right? So you could also have that object rotate with the same tool. So could you go to the same keyframe? That keyframe has one instance of my symbol. My symbol is called box, even though it doesn't look like a box anymore. So I went to frame 30. I chose that particular symbol. I got the same tool, the free transform tool. I'm going to rotate it. So you don't actually touch the corner handle. You come just outside. And I'm going to rotate it about a quarter way round. And just make sure I got that right. There are numerous properties. I want to talk about 5 properties right now. And knowing these will make any animation more interesting. Don't let things be even in size. It's going to bore people, right? Here's another thing. Don't let everything keep its orientation. This is so boring. And it's even more interesting just simply doing this. What leaf would fall from a tree like that? No. Right? So I want to mess with orientation. That just means, is it still as vertical as it was? So we just rotated it a quarter of the way. I'd like you to back up and see how that feels. I just want to point out a small thing about rotating with the free transform tool. So one of the keyframes dominated it. The keyframe before was not rotated. So this is what the computer thinks of as upright. But then I get to the keyframe where I rotated it, and you can see it's turning kind of counterclockwise there. But what's going to happen over here? Remember, frame 45 was not rotated. There it is, upright again. So frame 15 started the rotation, which frame 30 was the boss of. But watch it rotate back on its way to the next frame. Curious, right? Because the other instances are still upright. Only one was rotated. All right. I'm not hearing it. Is someone asking me a question? I heard one of those weird, like, okay. So Scale, rotation are two of my favorite properties. Folks, I want to tell you something. You can't always animate characters. Sometimes it's just words, colors, shapes. And the only way to keep that interesting is to be playing with these properties. I want to get to another one, right? Tint. Tint is another thing the human eye can't get enough of. Things changing tint. You know, if I suddenly fall into shadow, give me a second here. Is this not working? No. I was trying to create a shadow on my face. But if there's a shadow, you're just like, what just happened? You know, did a cloud pass? Is there, you know, a pterodactyl? So also, if you change color, right, the chances are something in the environment changed. All right. Since we've got some activity surrounding frame 30, let's go to the next keyframe. Remember, that's when it arrives down here in the lower left corner. So I'm on frame 45. If your numbers are different, that's not a big deal. Just remember, you could only make these changes on keyframes. That's where the instances live, the artwork, the instances of the artwork. So I'm going to frame 45, and what I want to do is some tint. Okay, this is only slightly less obvious, and yet almost everyone forgets it, and I'm going to ask you to try not to forget it. To change tint, these are the steps. Go to the keyframe, but this time you do have to click the artwork once, even if it looks like it's already selected. And I want to prove it. I clicked on frame 45 to get here. I go to the properties palette, and what I'm looking for is called color effects, and I don't see it. That's because I have to click the artwork once. Then I see color effects. So I want to repeat that. First, go to the keyframe, then click the artwork one time. On the right side, you'll see color effects, and we want tint. So my big concern is this. You do have to choose your keyframe first, just by going there. You don't even have to click it, but you can.
Before you press tint?
You have to go to the correct keyframe first so it knows when to tint it.
Okay.
You know, the first question is always when for an animator. You know, we don't care as much about what or why. It's all about when. You know, we live in time, right? So at this moment, it's going to be a different color. So you bring it to a keyframe because that's the keyframe that represents the moment. But since the color is on the object, you also click it once. Then go to color effect and choose tint. This chip here lets you choose whatever color you want to choose. Then the tint slider lets you choose how much of a tint. So you're not pouring the color in. The paint bucket doesn't work, for example, for a symbol. So you have to tint, and you choose how much of that color you want. Now I want to point something out. The logic of tweening is true. The object before it is the original color, right? So that means it's heading toward green in my case. It's getting greener. It arrives here where it's just flat out green. But I got another keyframe coming up. So that means it's going to leave the tinted color and go back to the original. This keyframe represents my green object. So if you rewind a little bit, this was the original color, and I play it, goes green, and then it returns again. Tint is so important that I would like to review it, but it so happens the next one has the same steps. What if you want something to be transparent? The steps are almost identical. First, you choose a key moment represented by a key frame, right? Then you click the artwork one time. So let's try that out. Let's choose a victim. I'm going back to the beginning. I like that frame being plain, but what about this one where it dips? Maybe that's too soon. Let me think about it. No, I'm going to try it. You know, the human eye doesn't really, it's only going to have, 7, 8 frames to notice this, but I'm going to try it. So you bring the playhead to any keyframe you want to try it on. The properties palette doesn't show you what you need yet because then you click the artwork. Find the keyframe, click the artwork one time. Now that's exactly what you did to choose tint. But this time I want you to choose alpha. Alpha is transparency. And there's a slider. You can go slightly transparent or completely transparent. I just want to make sure I didn't lock anybody out. Nope. No, we're good. Should rewind a little and play. Okay, scale, rotation, tint, and alpha. Those are 4 really hot properties, using them like mad. Really, you want people to stay interested visually, eye candy. What makes us watch those commercials? God, I hate commercials. Really, I do. But I have to admit, I admire a good one. And I'm always trying to look and see, like, how'd they get me? How'd they get me? I'm so resistant, they got me anyway. You know. So if it's shapes, you're talking motion graphics right now. Motion graphics completely depends on these, right? Scale, rotation, tint, alpha. I guess I could mention one more that I've gotten into lately, which is simply brightness. And brightness means you want the same color, but you want it lighter or darker. And you know, the human mind really expects that. You know, the day's passing, you get darker if you're outside. You know, so that just sort of logic. So this is a really useful one. And guess what? Same steps. All the color effects almost follow the same steps. I'd like you to choose a keyframe you haven't worked on. And I have not used this one, right? Where it is up in the corner. So I find the keyframe, I click the artwork, and then I go to color effects. Well, we did tint first. We just did alpha. I want to go to brightness. On the left of the brightness slider is black, and on the right is white. I'm going to make mine dark. All right, whenever you're ready, rewind it and play it. So, you know, we had a kind of boring object that just went boop, 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 right? And it was like not very exciting. You know, the only exciting thing was it was easy. But it's the properties that make things interesting and the timing. And we haven't really messed with timing yet. Not on this one, right? So I just want to mention something about this. Some of these segments are taking more time than others. For example, from frame 1 to this little dip that it takes, that's only 8 frames. That's exactly 1/3 of a second. So if I speed that up, or I mean, if I ease it, right? So I use those 8 frames differently. Maybe it starts slow and speeds up. I'm not sure I'm going to perceive it. I only got a 1/3 of a second to even notice that it's changing speed. You know, we could explore that, but I'd like to start on one that's probably going to be more obvious. Any of these that have more time, this one's got 15 frames, I'll probably experience easing. I want to go to the last one because I think this is the most obvious. I want to show you what I mean. I'm going to frame 45. There's really not a hell of a lot doing as it climbs up that wall. You know, it looks like I've changed tint over there, right? But not much else is doing. And it's going at a constant speed. I want to get back to easing, right? Ease in. So ease in particularly is where it's nice to start. This object can start slower. I want to point out though, it's in the same number of frames. I gave it 15 frames to do its thing. That's not going to change. It is going to arrive in 15 frames, right on schedule. So even if your train goes too slowly and you're trying to get on schedule, later on, it's going to go damn fast to make up for the time, right? But it could still make it. So this is our schedule. We got 15 frames. If you want to do some easing with me, I'm suggesting this segment. Click in between the keyframes. We did this just before. Click in between the keyframes. You're saying in this tween, right? I want it to ease. Ease in, start slow. So you click in the layer between the 2 keyframes that interest you and come over to the right. We'll click in Classic Ease again. I'm using Ease in. This is pretty severe. I think I'm going to try it. I'm on Quint right now, this big dent here. I should be able to perceive it. So I'm going to accept that by hitting return. Sometimes you have to hit it twice. This is just the last segment. Here's frame 45. Oh, that felt good. It's a different speed relationship. It's arriving on time, but it started slow and then sped up a lot. So again, I clicked in between. I came over here. This used to just say easing or classic ease. Now it says the kind of ease I have. I could press it again though, and I could change my mind. We're going to explore others, but right now it's on ease in. This is how intense it is. This one's kind of subtle. I'm going to try it though. That was just too subtle for now because the thing only has 15 frames. I'm not really perceiving it too easily. I'm going to exaggerate it. So I'm clicking there again. I'm going to go back to Quint. That made that left side so much more interesting than it was. So it's not technically a property, but it might as well be because it's really a property of the movie. This has gotten much more interesting. I'm open to questions about anything involving the classic tween we just did. Anything at all. Easing, perhaps?
I have of course I have a question. Sorry.
Okay.
I shut off my camera for a second just because my internet slowed down. But are you able to manually ease? Like if the ease is not doing what you want, then do you just have to add extra frames in
Well,
between?
adding frames would make it take more time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you wanted to, if
Take
you
more
want,
time.
yeah.
Let's do it. Right? So we just eased. Did everybody just ease some part of your animation? So
Yeah.
remember, you're controlling relative speed, but not how long it takes, right? It's just like I got to be there at, I'm meeting someone at a restaurant in 15 minutes. I started slow. I better speed up, and I could still be there in 15 minutes, right? So, but if you wanted to take more time, we have a few choices. By the way, last week there were some really good questions about timing, and in the interest of not confusing anyone, I don't want to give you too many choices. But right now we're a little more advanced, so I want to mention something. As long as there's more space between keyframes, it's going to take longer to arrive. Yeah, but how do you create the space? There's two different ways I want to point out now. One of them is F5, the original way we used to work it. So please concentrate on this for a minute with me. The last segment here is that slide up the wall. And as I told you, I'm pretty happy with it. I like that little kind of burst of energy, but it's only 15 frames. If I wanted to take longer, right, I won't click out here in F5 because that'll just create plain frames after I'm done. So I don't need to do that. If I want to take longer, I'll click in between. This time, F5 will add 1 frame at a time. So you have to know whether you need your FN key or not, right? I do. So I'm holding down FN and I'm tapping F5 to move it over. And it's just adding frames in the tween and moving the tail end over. So this whole segment took 15 frames, but now mine's taken 30. It's taken twice as long. So it's got that same sense of easing, but if I was clocking this, it's taking considerably longer. I don't think I didn't even have a second last time. This time it's over a second. I'm gonna repeat that. So in that particular method, I click in between keyframes and I hold down FN and I tap F5. Some computers, you don't need the FN key. It's really the F5 key doing the work. And I'm taking it out till it's twice as long as it was. I can keep on going. Now, the thing I want to mention with that method is everything on that layer just got pushed down time. Everything's going to arrive later now. Everything down. I put the new frames in between this segment. If there was more, everything's being pushed down. Later today, or shortly soon, I want to talk about how you do that if you had 10 layers, right? So that you don't lose the relationships of time between the different. Look, if that arrow is on a layer, right, and the balloon's coming this way, they better meet, right? Because that was the goal, to shoot the balloon. So if I slow down the arrow, I better slow down the balloon or they'll never meet. So there's going to be some elaborate timing using F5. I do want to show you a couple of other methods though. So I'm going to Command Z mine. But in fact, I'll just show you here. If I can just grab a keyframe by clicking it once and moving it. Right. And the interesting part of doing it that way is it's not changing the length of the timeline if I'm moving it to the left. The timeline's still 75 frames where I left it, but this event here is going to be much quicker. If the 2 frames are closer, you remember in the movie we saw today, it said less drawings, right, is faster. And I said, just replace the word with frames. Less frames is faster. So now that I have less frames between these two, look how fast that segment is. Right? It just went whoop. I couldn't even sense the easing because it was just too fast for me to perceive it. More frames in between is slower. So you can either grab that keyframe and drag it. I'm way out to 100 now. Or you can click in between in F5. This is going to be very slow. So what we're talking about now is controlling the space between the keyframes to control speed. You press it, drag it, or you F5. Is one better than the other? In different situations. Really, there's so many variables on this, but either one works. All right, guys, I want to do something kind of cool with you just for fun, right? Because we're learning a lot. I want to say a couple things. This is motion graphics we're doing. After we do this, I'd like to do some animation. The character may be a box, but it's not a graphic. It's going to, you know, say it's a box, you know. But I want to show you something cool about what you just did. Let's take a pause for a minute. You know, I have more experience in motion graphics than I have with character animation. The last year or two, I'm all about characters. But my professional life beforehand was mostly motion graphics because I was known as a web designer. And so people would say, look, I need motion graphics for my website. So I was, you know, good person for that kind of thing. So what I learned is all these tricks to keep the eye interested without drawing a lot. You know, if someone's going to pay you $500 for an animation, you might be okay with that if you do it in a day or 2 days. You're a student, maybe 3 days, but by then you're like, you could be delivering pizza, making the same money, right? So I'm really interested in any technique that keeps people interested, that doesn't create work. I want you to try something kind of wild with me. All right, I want to use some layers. Could everybody come down to the layer palette? Way on the left of the layer palette is this little plus sign, and all Adobe products that use layers has it. Photoshop, Illustrator. I want you to click it one time more, and one time more. You just made yourself 3 layers over the current layer. What I want to do is recycle the artwork and the timing and the motion, everything, so that there's a trail of objects doing it. The first object takes off, then the next, then the next, then the next, then the next. We could do this at incredible speed, right? So you had to make those 3 layers first, right? So remember, I was just asking you to click the little plus sign on the layer palette. All right, are you ready? The notion is we're going to copy this whole layer, drag it to layer 2, but we're only going to drop it on layer 2 a few frames late, meaning it starts late. It's like a race. This person started second. So let's try that with me. All right, you need these empty layers ready. I want you now to look at layer 1. If I click over here in this gap right next to the layer name where it says layer 1, the whole layer got highlighted. We're going to have to be careful about that in the future, but now I want it to. It turns blue. It's a fast way to select all your keyframes on a layer. Some of you have a lot of experience with option dragging or alt dragging. Option dragging always means copy. This time we're going to copy the whole layer. So you highlighted it. Now I'm going to ask you to hold down Option or Alt. Alt on Windows, Option on a Mac. Keep it down. Could you watch my screen though? So you're keeping yours down. I'm keeping mine down. I press on the current layer. I drag up and over. I'm just guessing how many frames over. I'm giving him here 5 frames. I let go of the mouse first, or the touchpad. Then I let go of Option. If you missed it, You click next to the layer name as a fast way to highlight the whole layer. It all turned blue. So in this little gap, then you held down Option or Alt, you kept it down, you dragged up from those selected keyframes over a little bit, start making it delay, right? And then you simply let go of the mouse, the touchpad, the stylus, whatever. Then you can let go of Option. You notice that the new layer keyframes are already highlighted? So I don't have to select this one. If they're highlighted blue, you're already good. All I need to do is do the Option trick again. I'm gonna hold down Option, drag the new one up and over. I could keep going, right? I'm gonna do one more. If you actually lose the highlight, I could come here and click it again. Slightly different, but pretty similar, right? So I'll do it. The only problem with that is I'm gonna copy this blank keyframe here also. It's all right. I'm gonna hold down Option, up and over. I could see my first keyframes, those are the ones I care about, are what I call scattered in time. This one comes first. Watch this. How's it going on your end? Are we in a thumbs up kind of place? Or are we in a thumbs sideways? Thumbs up? Hey, you guys with your cameras off, can you give me some reactions? How you feeling about this? You could turn on your mic. You could use the reactions button for emojis. Cool. Listen, those of you who you know, speak little and even emoji little, please be sure you ask me for what you need. All right. You know, I'm rather protective of my students, so when I don't hear from anybody, I get extra concerned. Sometimes they're acing everything. Sometimes it's the opposite, but I don't get to know except by your homework. Any questions about that last bit of me copying to the layers? I want to stop for a moment, and I just want to say something about working with graphic elements. The shape I have doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't represent a single thing. It's not an object from the world. It's not a symbol of an object from the world. It's just a graphic. It's interesting that we like some shapes and we don't like others. What makes a strong shape is an interesting conversation. But I want to say one thing that makes my shape work: the hole. Now I got to tell you, I did that purposely because I knew I was going to do this trick with you last. And I wanted you to be able to see through the hole. You'd see the lower layers through a window in the object, just like in a car, looking through the windows. So I want to repeat something from earlier you might want to take advantage of. You have a lot of instances on the stage. You know, our first layer, we just did one corner, next corner, and then we came back up. So we actually had 5 keyframes. We got 4 layers. So that's at least 20. But we also added little dips and other little things. There's a lot of keyframes. What if you change your artwork now? So folks, I want to mention a couple of different things about symbol editing mode, right? Let's go over what you learned, and then I want to show you a variation that concerns me. Could you go to your library for a minute? And I'd like you to double click that object in the library. I don't double click the name because it thinks I want to give it a new name. I use the icon. So I left the movie, but I don't really have to worry about that. I'm just in symbol editing mode. What can you do? Well, I could add more shapes. I could alter the current shape. I could punch more holes in it. The hole was the coolest part. I also really do like these little circles off the side because they really made it feel like it was spinning when it rotated, like the rivets on a wheel, right? Can you change the color? Now you can change the color here, but if you do, your tint is going to feel different. You know, like if I tint a blue object red, it turns purple. But if I take my blue object and the original is now yellow, later on when it tints, it's going to turn orange. Same tint color, or different original color. So be careful about color. So I want to mention some things I sometimes do. I'm in symbol editing mode. Sometimes I'll take my black arrow and select a stripe. I believe I've shown you this before, but it's worth mentioning. I could start over here on the left, press and drag with the black arrow, and it selected all these pixels. So I could choose a different color for them. That's kind of interesting. Command Z that. I don't like the way it came out. So I'm going to do that again. I start with the black arrow for this particular approach, and I drag across the area I want to select. I can do whatever I want with it. I can move it, but I don't really want, ooh, that's kind of cool. But what I meant to do is change its color. So I selected it, and I simply choose a different color in any of the ways you've already learned. So any kind of changes you want to make, you can make. Whatever you could think of. But as soon as you go back, you'll see the difference. I'm going to try something a little different. I want to just see what would happen. I'm going to add a little shape off to the left where I'm confident I won't break anything. And then I'm going to move it where I want it. I'm kind of curious about that. Whenever you have whatever you want, the whole entire movie is going to update, right? So whenever you're done editing your symbol, please remember to look up in the top left. It says the name of your symbol. You click that arrow just beside it to get back to the movie. Oh, that was a good change. I love the dot in the middle. Trippy stuff. Any special requests? Can I X? No? All right, I want to ask you guys' opinion about something. It's already 10:30. That kind of caught me off guard, you know? Should we take a break now? How many people think it's a good time for a break? Emily's voting for the break.
Yeah, I go for the break.
All right, let's do it. I want to make this a 20-minute break. There's just a lot to do today. You know, folks, I want to tell you something. One reason I'm so hungry for feedback from you is, and I told you this first week, I'm not happy with the success rate in this particular course. And I've taught 25 subjects in my life, right? This is just one of the most challenging. The class I taught that was the closest neighbor is experimental video. And I knew I was blowing people's minds in that class. And it took just a lot of energy. So without your feedback, sometimes I go too slowly. Sometimes I'm going too fast. So please be open with your feedback to help me make it a better class. Right now, let's take a break. 10:55, we're starting. I'll see you back at 10:55.
Thank you.
Tiffany, I want to ask you, have you gotten, hey, how's the Discord going?
So far, not much going on in the Discord.
You posted some animation. I saw Jason posted, right? Was it Jason who posted?
Not my latest stuff, but yeah, I post one piece over there.
Posted something.
So listen, I really do hope a couple other people want to have more people to show this stuff to or talk to when I'm not around and we're not together in class on Friday. I know we're all very busy. This is completely optional.
I was planning to post more of my art in that Discord anyways.
I like your attitude, and I always did. And I'm hoping that by you doing that and by Tiffany doing that, it encourages other people to post art. You could ask for suggestions from each other, ask people what they like most. If you have the nerve, you can ask them what they hate most. You know, it's like a private place to hang out with people who know what you do. You know, it's like a bar for animators. Wouldn't that be cool? The animation bar. Anyway, I'm going to go take my break.
All right.
Did I say 10:55?
You said 10:55.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go take a break too. I'll see you guys at 10:55.
See you in a bit.
Don't forget to stop recording.
And we're back.
And we're back. Yes, indeed.
This time I got my dog to join me in the background.
Really? Is he willing to do a cameo appearance?
Not right now.
Right
Probably
now.
at the end because he's sleepy.
Yeah, yesterday I had somebody's dog just insisted on sitting in front of him. This big dog. It was hilarious.
See, this is how it works. Sometimes he sleeps on my arm, and then you can see a little bit of him in the bottom right here. But in other times he likes sleeping behind me, which is what he's doing right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a pet also. I think you probably met my cat before. She often sits right behind me, but today she's hiding it.
I think I did one time in the last class, in MMP.
Oh, really? Oh,
I
funny.
think, because it came around.
Yeah, she'll show up. So, folks, if your camera ready, please turn them on. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Juliana. I want to make sure everybody's back. I see. All right, here we go. Popping on. Obviously this stuff takes some effort, right, to get the hang of. And I was just talking to family members about like how I go about trying to find a pace for this class, how dependent on feedback I am to find out if it's slow, because sometimes it feels slow, other times it feels fast. So I'm guessing a lot because I'm not getting quite enough feedback. So help me out if you can. I want to head us toward more and more realistic things, right? Like the semester had a lot of preparation to get us toward character animation. And there's just a little bit that I want to do with you now. And I think I'm going to, I think I know just how I want to start. So folks, I want to make sure everybody's here. So if you're not on camera, can you give me an emoji to let me know you're here? Give me a reaction. I got 12 people. Excellent. All right. Excellent. All right, well, good. Let's move forward then. Folks, I want to try something kind of exciting, and I want to do a combination of some drawing ideas, take a little break from tweening, just a very little one, and then bring them into a tweened animation where we use, I think, great one, and we will try to bring it to life. Okay, I want to start with a special shape though, because what I want is a feeling of something that could launch into the air, and come back down. So a vertical canvas might suit us well, a vertical stage. Before we start the next one, I do want to say one quick thing about sizing animations. If you're working for television, you should talk to the people you're working with about what width and height they want. We're used to widescreen stuff lately, but they're not always. So the width and height is up for grabs. But if you're working for the internet, it also may be about full screen, but it may not. A lot of my animations were integrated like a magazine in there with text and photos and other stuff. In that case, I get a lot of freedom about its shape. So I want to try something from that front with a specialized shape. All right, could everyone join me in Animate with File Menu, New? I want you to go over to the right where it says Width, and I want you to make that 480. And for height, I want it to be 1,000 tall. So it's almost twice, it's more than twice as tall. 480 width, 1,000 tall. And we got a frame rate of 24 again. All right, 480 by 1,000. All right, that's great. Next, I want you to get comfortable, meaning I want to make sure you could see that whole awkwardly sized stage. So here's a couple things I'll typically do. While I don't have many layers, I'll come down to the layers palette. The very top edge will give you this double arrow, and you could press and drag it up or down. I'm dragging mine down until I have more layers. I got more room. The other thing I do to get comfortable, which means to see the stage easily, is I'll come up to the upper right where it currently says 100%. I could just use the down arrow and back up like that, or I could go to the larger arrow on the right and say show frame, which brings me close, and then back up. I got to warn you, with a shape this weird, we're going to have to zoom in often and then back out often. So we're going to have to get very comfortable and not lazy at all about making sure we're at a reasonable distance. So once we get busy, we're going to need to see this whole thing. But I do want to start with some drawing. So once we start to draw, I want to show you other ways to zoom in and zoom out. Right now, I just want to mention, get to know this well, this upper right area, and remember that you can move your layers up and down as you see fit. Okay.
Professor,
yes.
My Animate doesn't have the zoom up there in the
It doesn't have
right.
that zoom feature?
No.
Juliana, can I ask you something? When we were going into symbol editing mode, were you seeing the features over here that I kept pointing to on the left? In other words, when I went to symbol editing mode in the last project up here, it said the name of the symbol.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
You did see that, but you're not seeing this on the right.
No.
All right, let's try something, you and I. Let me just take a quick look. No one's ever not had that feature that I know of before. So I'm taking a quick look um, under the window menu, and next I would check view. I don't see it here. Can I ask you to check your workspace for a minute, Juliana? So you go to the window menu, down to workspaces. What do you
Yeah.
see there? What's checked?
I have it on essentials.
Me too. What kind of screen are you on? Is it small or large? Your actual computer. Is it a very small computer?
It's a laptop. It's a smaller one.
It's a small laptop. Yeah, I'm on a laptop too, but it's a big laptop. So I'm wondering if it's reconfiguring somehow to fit your laptop.
Oh, I think I found it, but yeah, I had to like make the properties panel smaller. Okay,
Oh,
I think I
really?
fixed it now. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you were actually taking this edge and moving this edge around.
Yeah, I think that was the issue. Yeah.
Oh, great. That's interesting. I like learning that stuff. All right, so we're all here. Folks, I want to talk to you about drawing the cube. Give me a second. I want to grab a cube. Ugh. This is a cube. Hey, listen, I got to tell you something. I fell down the stairs last night, and like I got a lot of stairs. I don't know if you see them back there. I literally hit every single stair on the way down, me and my computer. It was so weird. I was laid out on the ground, and hence the box of Band-Aids, my cube of Band-Aids. But really, we all thought I was going to be dead, but I didn't hit my head or my spine like a miracle. So, whew. So really, I wasn't sure whether I was teaching today or going to the hospital, but apparently nothing's broken, so I'm feeling kind of lucky. All right, my cube. So I want to point something out. You know, we all know that a cube has 6 sides, right? It's got the obvious 4 sides, right? But it's got the top and the bottom. The thing is, though, you could never see more than 3. Now, the way I'm holding it, you can only see 2. And the reason being is it's level with the camera, or level with the eye view, we like to say. It'd have to be lower than you to see the top. So like right now, you could see 3 sides because your eye is higher than the box. In our animation, this is what we're going to need because it's starting on the floor and then it's going to launch in the air. Thing is, technically, once it was in the air, right, you would see a different 3 sides, right? You'd see from the same corner, but you'd also see the bottom. But we're going to cheat. So I want to say something about cheating in animation. It's all cheating, isn't it? You know, really, the whole thing is just an illusion. In this particular case, no one's going to ever get to really see the bottom. One, because it's launching too fast. So it'd be really not worth the time to draw it. Also, because we'd have to frame by frame. So let's draw that box. I want to take a little detour about drawing. So something that's been on my mind is the pen tool. Now, I know 1 or 2 of you have experience with the pen tool and other programs, usually Adobe Illustrator. And I just want to warn you, this tool in this program behaves close, very similarly. It will not fill an object. It will only draw strokes. In other programs, if you have your fills turned on, it might fill as you're drawing. In Illustrator, for example. Not in this. You draw your lines, you fill them. Then if you don't want the lines, you just delete them. So we're going to use this tool now for the first time as a group. All right, let's try it out. I want to just do straight lines right now. We don't really have an hour to spend on the pen tool. I just want to start with some simple pen tool. And I also want to review stuff we haven't touched in a while, which is object mode, right? So first off, I want to check that you have the pen tool. So I'd like you to look on your toolbar and see if you've got this tool. The letter P will take you to that tool, but it looks like only that tool. If you press, it's got neighboring tools, which we might not need. I'm only concerned with the pen tool. I want to remind you, if you can't find it, go to the bottom of the toolbar where you see those 3 dots and click it. Here's the tools you're not currently using. The pen tool would be here. If you're seeing it here, you got to press and drag it somewhere on the toolbar. Drag it carefully. We're going to need this right now. When you're done, go back to the 3 dots at the bottom of the toolbar and release it. Okay, I'd like you to look at your colors right now, right? You could look right at the bottom of the toolbar. You might notice I have a black fill currently and a black stroke. My first point is it's going to ignore the fill, so pay no attention to it. It's going to use your stroke. So whatever color you want to use for the stroke, you choose now. You can go to that stroke box. Remember, that's the one that looks like a frame. Click it, and you can pick any color you want. I'm going with black right now. All right, folks, can you do a couple quick exercises with me? Somewhere on your left, click once, just click. Be sure not to press and drag. Just click. Go somewhere else and just click again. You made your first line. This tool is incredibly easy for straight lines, and it so happens that's what we need. So you go elsewhere, you click again, you go elsewhere, you click again, and then lastly, when you get to that original anchor point, you'll see a little circle, which means you're closing the shape. At that stage, you could fill it with the paint bucket. Get the paint bucket, pick a color for it, and pour it in there. Now, I'd like you to just to do one more. So the black arrow is only going to get the fill with one click. So if you want to delete that object, please double click with the black arrow and delete it. Sorry, I thought I double clicked, but I didn't. There we go. Then delete. So I just want to say really quickly, if you press and drag, you're in a more complex place. Watch this. When you press and drag, you're making curves. So there's no, I should put this somewhere else. It's really hard to see on my screen, I bet. It's easier over here. So we're not ready for this, right? You know, this is a fantastic part of the tool, but it would take a significant amount of time to do as a group. So, all right, let's make that box. Now, our box is under our eye level, and we're seeing it from the corner. We're going to start with one side. All right. It's okay to zoom in as much as you need. Remember, this is a vector program. You could change the size of the object when you're done. Draw large if you want, right? So here I go, right over here. Watch this. You know something? Can I change the background of this? I'm going to do it on stage just so you can see. All right. Click. Just take a quick look. This is what I'm after. I'm looking for one side of the cube. So I'm trusting my eyes about the diagonals. This is the shape that I'm after, and I'm going to do it one more time, but I'm getting the paint bucket just to make a point. That's the side of the cube, right? So you want to make that shape before you fill it. I'm going to mention some things that are helpful. So I'm clicking in the top, and I'm coming down diagonally, and I click again. If I want the next line to be perfectly straight, I could hold down Shift to help. Right, click as far down as I want to go and click again. The diagonal, don't hold down Shift though. Trust your eye. We're dealing with perspective right now, right? So those lines could be parallel or a little tapered in the back if you prefer. And trust your eye. Close it. Now you'll be able to adapt it in a minute. So close it however it looks, right? I would like you to fill it though before we move further. So get your paint bucket. And I'm gonna go with a bunch of yellows right now. So I'm choosing a standard yellow and I'm filling it. Now, if you don't like that shape, one of the beauties of working the way you just did is that the white arrow and the black arrow can help. Now, I want to mention, we've been using the black arrow mostly, but in this case, I think the white arrow is going to be better. The worry I have about the black arrow is this. Even though you can move corners with the black arrow, do you notice how this created a curve for no reason? That's really annoying. And I'm a little surprised by that behavior. So the black arrow seems to do that fairly randomly. I'm going to Command Z it. The white arrow won't do it. So what you're looking for now is this tool, the white arrow. This program calls it the sub selection tool. It is very similar to the white arrow in any other program, including Illustrator. Again, if you cannot find it, it might be under the black arrow if you press on it. It might be elsewhere on the toolbar. If you can't find it at all, please click the three dots at the bottom. The arrows are typically here. If you're not seeing them, that means you already have them out. When you're done, if you don't need anything else here, click the three dots at the bottom of the toolbar. All right, the white arrow is the best tool for moving anchor points. You just made 4. So if you don't like them, you could click here, for example, you'll see the anchors, but the one that's darkest is the selected one, and you could move it as much as you want. This would be if there's color inside or not, doesn't matter. So I just want to mention a common mistake in perspective is to do this, where the back is too tall. That's opposite of the way the eye sees. Things get smaller in the distance, right? So I'm going to take this down. These could be parallel, the top line and the bottom line, or it could be slightly tapered for more exaggerated zip into space. That's kind of up to you. Do your best to have the 2 sides parallel. Now, what I want to do is turn this one into an object. Bear with me, folks. This is a new way of seeing things. I want to show what the problem is going to be. If I don't make this into an object, I want to show what's going to happen. If I draw any shape after this, any shape, and I let them overlap, you know I'm going to have troubles later when I try to move anything. Right? I destroyed the first shape. We're going to have 3 shapes right next to each other. So I want to make sure that this doesn't happen, right? So I want to show you my own solution to the problem. I want to select this object completely, and the white arrow is not really made for doing that. So I'd like you to get the black arrow when you got that one side. Could you select that whole side? Guys, remember, be sure that the stroke is selected, right? Double click it. I want to bring us back to something we tasted early in the semester. You got a selected editable object. We've all been in editing mode, let's say, a merge mode, right? I don't want this object to merge with anything, right? That's the real language. Can you go to the properties palette? Once this object is selected, you could tell it not to be mergeable anymore. So nothing could take a bite out of it. Come over to the properties palette. It should be showing you the object tab, but if it's not, go to the object tab also. Properties, object. These buttons here are the ones I'm talking about. This very peculiar looking one, right? When you mouse over it says create object. I want you to click it. Now, all that means is this object will not merge with other objects nearby, right? They will stay separate like Illustrator treats drawings, just like Illustrator. But the good news is you could still black arrow stuff. You could still white arrow stuff, right? It just means any shape I overlap it with won't hurt it. All right. Did you make your drawing into an object? You should be seeing this bluish box around it. If you missed it, I'm going to do it one more time. Any object you make that's editable, it shows little dots on it. We don't want them anymore. If you select that whole object, you come here on the properties palette. I want everyone to stare this down. We're going to need this a lot, this feature here. You click it, it makes an object out of it. Now both of these are objects. They could stack, they could move. They're not going to affect each other, even though I'm on the same layer. All right. I'm ready to make the next side. So get the pen tool. Now I want to warn you guys, especially any of you who've used the pen tool. I know 1 or 2 of you mentioned that you like it. This program treats it differently. I still not decided if I like the changes. In Illustrator, I couldn't go adding using this anchor point. This is already closed. In this program, I could actually add flanks to it, but they're hard to work with. I'd rather make separate panels completely. So I'm not actually going to click on this corner. You see that little slash? Bring your pen tool over to a corner. That little slash means it's going to continue from there. Weird, if you ask me. That's a closed object. And I could go ahead and make the other side this way, but I think that's going to be very problematic. They're going to be harder to move around. So I don't want to do it. This is what I want to do. Come near it. Click. Near it, not on it. Click. Just watch. Click. I'm raising this up. This is the opposite side, and I'm closing it. When I'm done, I'm going to bring them next to each other. I'm intentionally leaving a gap. I don't want the pen tool trying to connect to another shape. It makes a mess. I want separate planes for our box. Now, we could make it an object now, or we could fix it and then make it an object. Doesn't really matter. So I think what I'm going to do is make it an object now. It's still editable right now, right? So that means it's going to merge with other objects. Double click it, go to the object button, and freeze dry it. If you don't like the shape, remember, you could still edit it. It just won't merge. It's the only difference. It won't mess with other objects. All right, get that white arrow if you don't like it. Maybe you want these things higher or lower. Now I want to show you something. Can you click on the edge of your new object? About zooming, the program does really smart zooming. If something's selected and you just do Command plus, it zooms in on that object. Sweet. Command minus, it'll zoom away from that object. So that's better to zoom with when you're working on individual parts than this thing up here. Command plus. All right. So right now, if this is already an object, you could finesse the corners, or you could get the black arrow, click it once, and move it over. Try to line it up. They're ready to touch. My bottom corner doesn't look so good, so I gotta scroll over. I'm on a laptop. And because of that, I could use the touchpad to move things around with not using a tool. If you're on a regular computer, you might want to hold down the space bar to move the page around. Laptops don't have to do that. You could just do it from your touchpad. Usually computers, full desktop models, you have to hold down the space bar, the long bar. I'm coming down here, I'm getting my white arrow because I need to fix that corner. I click the edge to activate the anchors, pick the one I want, and get busy with it. All right, let's do the top. The top's going to follow the exact same rules. I find it easier not to let them touch at first, because then I keep on moving the wrong line. I got two lines overlapping, like the border between two states. They affect each other. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to get my pen tool, and I'm going to click just inside here. Click. I'm coming up this way. I'm just beside that line. Here's the back. The back could either be parallel to this line, so this would be parallel. This is what I mean by tapered, or a little narrower in the back for more exaggerated perspective, but it can't be the other way. It won't feel like it's in space. So I'm coming about here, knowing that I'm going to change it later. Then I'm ready to close this up. I come near this edge, I close it. I'm filling them before I adapt them because they're just easier to see. I'm going back to my paint bucket and I fill it. Again, I could finish it, or I could make it an object first. You know, right now I'm still editable, so I'm still asking for trouble when I move forward. This is what I'm trying to avoid. So I'm going to select the object with the black arrow, making sure I include the stroke. I'm moving over to that same object button, clicking it. Now it will not merge. So I could do whatever I want with it. I could try to move it into place, see how close I got. I could see the corners aren't quite right. I'm going to switch to the white arrow. You click the edge to activate the white arrow, just the edge, and you can get at your anchor points. For the record, we could have done this all with the black arrow. We could have started with the rectangle tool. It's just less exact. So I think we needed to upgrade. So we went with the pen tool and the white arrow. How are these tools treating you guys? Is it acceptable? Christian, how you doing today?
The pen tool's annoying me because I don't know. I don't think mine is working right. I'm not seeing the anchor points when
So,
I.
and you're not seeing the anchor point. So when you take the pen tool and click, you're not seeing anything there.
Well, with the pen tool, I can bring up the anchor points, but it's just drawing a bunch of random stuff from different corners.
Do you want to show me? Maybe I could figure out what's going on.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Yeah. All right. Let me just.
And of course, mine doesn't really quite look so neat. I haven't really kind of connected
That's all right.
it yet.
You're new to it. Just give me a second. I made a little error while before I want to turn off my screen sharing. All right.
Professor, do you need to group them like
Not yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, definitely not yet. We're going by steps. And I don't mind doing this twice. I really don't. Let me help Christian if possible. Christian, you want to turn on your screen sharing? All right. So when you're drawing with the pen tool, you're seeing anchors or could you just draw off to the right? Just draw, click. All right. So click again. I want to see if that happens again. All right. I want you to Command Z. Now it is looking a little odd to me, right? But here's what I'd like you to do. Could you get the white arrow or get the black arrow and just click on the stage? It's acting like you have something selected, even though it's not showing you the selection. You clicked on the stage, which should have deselected everything. You go back to the pen tool. Click again, see if it behaves now. Just click and let go. So you're not seeing the anchors at all until after you draw. Am I right? Is that what? So the anchors show up like afterwards, sort of? Very odd. Could you leave that object the way it is? I want to see what happens if you start something new outside of it. Click. Yeah, click. So usually once an object's closed, you could draw anywhere you want. So it's working all right. How's your white arrow treating you? That's not the white arrow. That's the transform tool. So can you press on the black arrow?
Here we go.
All right. Looks like you don't. Oh, you do have it. So click on the edge of an object. Now you can get at the anchors and move them around.
Okay.
So take a corner, for example. So that it's important that we know which one the white arrow is. So the only thing that's a little odd about how your computer's behaving is when you first make an anchor point, it's not showing up. So I have to think about what might cause that. I've never seen that before. Can this work for you in the meantime, do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, great. All right, cool. So if you turn off your screen sharing. How many of you guys have the 3 sides made? Again, show me either with a thumb or a hand or an emoji. Reactions. Okay. All right, so that's a lot of the class. All right, that's the majority. Great. All right, good. We'll be doing more pen tool. I could see the need for it. And I'm just going to have to rewrite the class a little bit. I think it's for the better. I'm up to it. All right. Give me a second here. Just making some room. A moment. All right, let me screen share. You guys seeing my screen? So, Mikey, I want to tell you something about your excellent question. You were just a step ahead. I like the fact that shapes merge often, but not always. You know, sometimes I'll draw a head and just overlap them with ears and they merge into a shape. It's very helpful. This case, it wasn't going to be helpful. I had to make sure that the planes of the cube were neat and that they didn't start taking bites out of each other. So each time we made an object out of it. Now I want to mention something about this. If you double click an object, you have 3. So if you get your black arrow and double click one, look what happened. In the upper left, it looks like you're in symbol editing mode, doesn't it? It's telling you that there's an object there. Everything else looks kind of milky, right? This is not really symbol editing mode. This is what Illustrator calls isolation mode. It means it lets you work on this thing alone. You know, I can't actually touch the other ones, but I can touch this one. right? So I'm not sure that matters, but why it matters is some of us double click a lot and without thinking. So if you double click without thinking in this program, you're in trouble. You know, you keep leaving the timeline. So I don't even want to be here. I want to back up. So if you go back to the top left corner, you could click where it says scene 1 or that arrow pointing to the left. That's the main stage. We're back. Right? That's only because you made it an object. Now, this cube's going to do lots of tricks. Lots of tricks. So he was right. I do need the 3 sides to be joined, but we don't want a group. We want something better, right? This is what we want to do. Everybody, I'd like you to get the black arrow for this. We need to select carefully the 3 sides before we make a symbol, right? Like we were doing before. But you know what? Now that I think about it, can we deal with our colors first? So I just want to mention a few things about color. I'm going to treat this as though the light is coming from above and a little bit on the left. So what I'm imagining is this is going to be the lightest. This is going to be next lightest. This side's going to be shadow, the darkest. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you to click the top one. Now, this type of artwork, an object, something you turned into an object, you don't have to use the paint bucket. So I'm going to show you that it's still just choosing it from the toolbar, the bottom of the toolbar. You don't need the paint bucket at all. All you have to do is select the object, go to your color chip, and pick a color. Since I'm working with yellows, I just want to mention all the light yellows are over here. So I'm picking a light one for the top of the box. Go to any side you want to change, click it only one time. We don't need to go into isolation mode to do this. Just one click, right? Then go pick a color for it. I'm going to pick something darker in the theme of yellows, so to speak. And here's my cube. We didn't go any further. These are in object mode, but that's about it. Now, there's one issue that I have with object mode. It's going to let me change the contours, but I don't see any way to select the stroke. And I personally want to get rid of it. If I'd done it before I made it an object, there'd be no problem. But now I have to go into isolation mode because I could tell it's just not selecting it. So can you double click a side? When you double click it, it's going to behave like an original object, the way you got used to the first few weeks. So I could simply click a side or double click a side to get the stroke and delete it. Wasn't able to do that when it was freeze dried on the main stage, but in isolation mode or symbol editing mode, everything acts like it's fresh out of the box. So I could get at those strokes. So I'm double clicking them for each side. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Come over here. Oh, I forgot I had to go to object mode for each side. So I double clicked it. Then I double click the edge to get it at once and delete it. Here's the top. It even, it took me back. I'm going to double click here. Each time I keep looking up here to be sure that I'm in drawing mode. In other words, pick the side, double click it, do whatever you need, and leave. I'm going to go back to the movie from the top left. Now, I don't know about you, but I like this better, right? So I just want to make a couple of points about it. Emily, what can I do for you? You all right? You sure? One more time?
Just my eyes are burning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm so anxious to be helpful. I got a telepathic message that something was wrong. It was just burning eyes. That I can't help with. All right. A quick word about that business with the strokes. You know, cartoonists love their strokes. You know, once I was a very trained cartoonist as a young person, so I still use those skills now. But I spent many years as a painter, and most painters don't like strokes. You know, Van Gogh doesn't have outlines. Charlie Brown does, right? So it's really up to you, this whole business. All right. Please be sure you're back in the movie. We're ready to make a symbol now. It's just the way we like it. It's going to be a little harder to edit later. So possible, but harder. All right, get your black arrow, click one side. To select multiple objects in most programs, you hold down Shift. So you click the first object, then you add Shift and keep Shift down, click the next one and the next one. All right, you want to be sure you got all three. I just zoomed back with Command minus. One click, hold down Shift, click the other one, still hold down Shift, click the other one. Now I'm going to make a symbol. So do your best to be sure all three are selected. Once, holding Shift, twice, the third one. All right, when you know you have all three, we're back to what we learned before, right? You either right click it or control click it and say create symbol. Convert to symbol. Once you do that, it's going to wind up being one box. You know, Mikey, I want to ask you something. Are you having a hard time selecting those sides?
I have to, I just have to use, like the buttons aren't like my best friend right now. So I'm having to right click everything.
Gotcha.
When I'm using
All
it,
right.
but it is, I am able to select it.
All right. All right. So I'm going to finish mine up then. I got these three sides. I'm control clicking the bunch of them and I'm going to do convert to symbol. All right. This time it is a box. And we want graphic symbol again. We click OK.
Professor,
all right, I want to mention a couple things. Yes, sure.
Are you able to save individual instances as objects? Like if you wanted half the box before you made it as an object, are you like that way you can reuse that asset like later on in the animation? Like
Yeah, you know, there's all kinds of combinations how to treat these elements. I mean, what you're asking does get kind of elaborate, and I
okay,
do believe that even if I attempted to demonstrate it, I think I
it's
would
okay.
lose people right now.
That's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to know
Yeah.
if there was something that you
Well,
can
I
do.
see the logic of it. What if it's a gift and it needs a lid? You know what I mean? Like I would like to be some way to keep them, you know, separate from each other. So, you know, again, each instance, each situation is different.
Cool.
All right, right now I want to get back to where we were. So if you look in your library now, you got your box, right? So this is what's going to happen with many things that you're going to make. Whatever it is, you're going to spend some time figuring out the best way to draw it, right? If it's a collection of parts, you're drawing a computer, you want to make sure all the parts, you don't have to click each key on the keyboard just to move the computer around. You select the whole thing and make it a group. So we've not done much of this at all before, more complicated objects. All right, this now becomes, I want to go into editing this object at this stage before we start to animate. Folks, double clicking now gets a little bit more elaborate because of this. You got a box that is a graphic symbol. If you double click it, you're going to go to symbol editing mode. But in symbol editing mode, there's three separate objects. To go into one of them individually, you'll double click again. I want you to join me on something. The truth about editing mode is you could do it from here, or you could do it right from the stage. Either way, if you look in the top left corner, you'll see the name of your symbol, and that means you're in symbol editing mode. Most of the time in class, I'm going to do it from here, the library. It confuses people less. All right. The thing that I want to point out is what can I do? I could change the colors, but I would have to double click it. I could move them separately. I'm trying to imagine why would I go into one of these objects? The only reason I could think of right now is if I left the stroke on and now I changed my mind. You know, then I'd have to double click it again. Look up here. It says scene 1, I'm in the symbol called box, and I'm in one of the drawing objects. Very nested, very complex. So I want to tell you what my point is. Don't double click unless you mean to. We'll come back and get to know when it's worth it, right? This is very complex. So I'm going to go all the way back to the scene. I just want to repeat this. If you double click, you leave the movie. I'm in symbol editing mode. Because these are made of parts that are made into objects, double clicking again, you're even deeper down the rabbit hole. Seriously, this is the Matrix now. It's inside of stuff. It's more like Inception. Where you like you have to keep pausing the movie to know if you're in a dream or not. Be careful. Could everybody go back to the scene if you're in any of the editing modes? All right. Okay, folks, this is what I'd like you to do. Can you make sure you could see your whole screen again? So however you want to do it, you could zoom back if you need to. Make sure you could see all four sides. This object is huge, right? Because I just found it easier to draw that way. Right now I want to make it smaller, so I'm just going to get the transform tool. Please be sure you're in scene 1, right? We're just talking about the movie. We're not in the dressing room at all. And I want you to get it to a size relative to the stage about that big and around here. I'm making it small enough that we could really experience it jumping in the air when it does that. So you got that transform tool again. All right, I'd like us to put something behind it, right? So I want to do two things. First off, we could just set a background color. I'm sure you all remember background color, and then add what we need to make the background more interesting. So let's do that. I'm going to ask you just to simply make sure your object's not selected. You can just click on the stage and go to your property palette. Here's the stage color. So just click on the empty stage and pick a stage color, whatever color you're in the mood to use today. Just remember, background colors don't get a layer, right? They could be changed, but they can't be tweened, right? Like I can't make it turn into nighttime or something like that, right? Because it doesn't even have a layer. Now, what I'd like you to do next is this. Could you make a new layer with me? We're going to put a floor on that layer with a simple rectangle. The problem is I need it to be behind my object. If I do this now, it's over the object, and that's not what I want. So I want you to make a new layer, then drag that layer to the bottom. So you're using that plus sign once, and now you're dragging this layer to the bottom. The bottom is behind, right? Just like Photoshop. And I think you all took some Photoshop before. So listen, about the floor, I'm going to get the plain old rectangle tool. I could use the pen tool, draw something fancier. I think the rectangle is all I need. So I'm going to pick up another blue for my floor. I'm getting a fill color. I'm looking at what I have available. I'm starting there. I don't want to stroke at all, so to save myself the time of having to remove it, I'm going to click on the stroke color next and choose stroke and none. If you got lost, we're using the rectangle tool. So I'm on a new layer. That's really important, right? This is coming back to Mikey's question earlier about backgrounds, right? I'm putting it on a separate layer. I got my rectangle tool set up, and this is what I'm looking for. I got a cube on the floor. I think it would be wise to rename these layers. Things are getting more complicated now, right? So to rename a layer, double click the current layer name. The upper one's got my cube. I'm going to call it cube or box. I think I'll go with box. The bottom layer is just the floor. So I'm going to call it floor. I don't think we're ever going to need the bottom layer, so I'm going to lock it. Now, I got a good question earlier. Do I have to lock it? No. No, I really don't. Look at this. Here's my black arrow. I'm moving this thing around. It's not affecting the floor at all because it's on its own layer, but it feels good to lock it. I want to mention what the lock actually does. It'll stop you from changing the artwork or moving the artwork. So here's my floor and I can't move it now, right? But I will be able to add to the timeline. if it needs more time. I could add frames. I just can't change the artwork. Essentially, you're locking the artwork on that layer. All right. So we prepared a little background. We prepared the star of our show, right? He's in the library. It's a graphic symbol. We're ready to do get busy with some real motion. All right, guys. Does anyone need another minute before I move forward or have a question so that you could join me? No, we're all right. Okay. So you notice ever since we started the class, one of the early steps that I do is I take a guess at how long I want to work with. And I got to be honest, what I have in mind is lengthy. And it's probably going to take as much as 10 seconds or more to make this box do what I want, maybe 20 seconds, and that's nearly 500 frames. I don't think I want to add 500 frames now because I'll be scrolling back and forth on the timeline. I'll feel kind of lost. So we're doing straight ahead, by the way, to use the language of the movie we saw earlier today. We're not figuring out our timing. Oh, it should be up here by frame 15 and then deal with the stuff in between. Straight ahead, we're chewing our way forward as we figure it out. The only thing I am doing is giving us a few seconds to get started with. Could you guys go out to, let's go out to 3 seconds again. And I'd like you to F5. So again, remember, if you need your FN key, some of you are doing it differently. You could click here and right click or control click and just do insert frame. So F5 is my favorite way, but you could do insert frame. In this situation, it's just as good. So I did it on the top layer. I also have to do it on the bottom or my floor will disappear. So I'm going to the bottom layer, also in frame 72. And I'm inserting my frame. I like F5, but I'm doing this to make a point. Control click or right click right in that frame, and you could do it this way. All right, let's be clear then. If you've got 10 layers and some actions going on in a room, you don't want random objects disappearing, right? So if they're 10 different layers, they better be the same length. All right. Can everyone bring the playhead back to the beginning? So first off, I want to say something about anticipation. Again, on that list of 12 principles from today. Anticipation. Part of it is just waiting, and then part of it is suggesting something's going to happen. So for example, if I sat down like this, right? I just showed up and I'm doing this. You don't care. But if I do this, I'm still, then I do this, it matters. So first thing I want to do is create a pause. Jennifer, you were asking me about F6. Whatever happened to F6? We're going to be doing a bunch of F6 again, right? So this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Let's give this thing 15 frames just to sit there. So we're talking about the box layer, your upper layer. Just double checking that no one locked out. Sorry about that. All right. Frame 15 of your upper layer, click right in it. Don't click on the number in the layer, right? And I want you to, you know what, actually, I'm sorry. Folks, I want to do this differently. Let's just turn on the tween. Can you go to frame 1? So I did it earlier today. I want to stick with it for a while. Click frame 1, control click, turn on your classic tween. Right, so we did this a few times now, right? It turned purple and it's longer than 1 second only because we already extended the timeline. We're able to extend the timeline before or after we turn on the tween. But now you got a long purple bar going all the way out into the 70s. It's very important that everybody's with me at this stage. It's about to get much deeper. I didn't tween the lower layer because the floor doesn't move. All right, I'm tweened. I'd like you to go to frame 15 now and F6. So remember, if you need your FN key or not, if F6 doesn't work at all, control click or right click and choose insert keyframe. Not a plane frame, a keyframe. You see that black dot? We now have a 15 frame pause. Nothing's going to happen. It's sitting on stage waiting. Right after this, I want a different kind of anticipation. The box is going to wobble. And it's going to make people wonder, is there something in that box? Now, we got to do something now, and I hope I didn't wait too long. No, I think I'm okay. Could everyone get the transform tool? I want you to notice something. If I rotate now, it rotates around the middle. So I'm going to Command Z that. If I wanted it to squash now, look what happens. It doesn't feel squashed because the bottom came up. I don't want that. This little circle in the middle, right? I'm going to call this the axis point. You could move it, but only with the transform tool, right? You hit Q to find this tool if you're unsure of which tool it is. I need for you to take that axis point and drop it right here. I got to tell you something very important that I've noticed about the axis point. If I have a ball that's going to bounce, which we're going to do, right? I better place that axis point at the bottom of the ball, right? So I'm always going to know what happens when it makes impact. We're going to do that with a box today. And if I didn't move that axis point now, every time I F6 to make copies or make copies in any way, they're all going to have the axis point in the middle. And if some have it in the middle and some have it on the bottom, it's a terrible mess. So I tried to make this decision really early. Do I want it to rotate around the middle? Probably not. Here's my elbow, and I want it to rotate from the elbow. If I had it here, boy, would that be a weird rotation. I want it to stay connected to my arm, so I'm very often going to move that point. All right, and only the transform tool can do it. So I want to point something out. You only have 2 keyframes. Look what happens next. I want you to only go 2 frames over and F6 again. Notice how the new artwork has the axis point in the same position. So all you did was you moved the axis point yourself to here. Then you went 2 frames further in F6 because I want you to tilt the object to the right. It's starting to wobble. And that point stayed on the floor. I want you to go 2 frames over again. Roughly, doesn't have to be exact. And F6 again. And rotate it over the opposite direction. Right now, you're going to have this. Oh, why did that one move? Oh, you know why? And I cheated, guys. I have to confess. I thought I'd get away with it. Try to slip one by you, but I didn't do it. Bet you Tiffany saw it coming. I should have changed that transform point at the beginning before I started making copies. But I think I could fix it. Because mine is suddenly, I told you, it gets weird if 2 of these objects have different points. This one here has it in the wrong point. I'm going to try to be first to see if this works. I'm going to pull it down now on frame 1 and see if that fixed it. And I'm good. So you're going to probably have that same problem. Could you go to frame 1? I'm thinking that one still has the axis in the middle. Take it right down to the same corner. Be as careful as you can. All right, scrub that playhead, grab it, see what happens. A little pause at the beginning, then it wobbles. I'm going to pick up the pace pretty soon. Does anyone need a hand yet? Did you scrub your playhead? Because if that first one's in the air, it's my fault. You know, and I want to help you fix it. Are we ready to move forward? So obviously it has to right itself, right? I made it go this way, and it's got to right itself, right? So I want to say something about that. You could just F6 again, 2 frames over one more time, right? And just write it by eye. You know, I think that's good. Let's do it that way. It's back upright. So here, if I play it, now that's pretty interesting. Something's going on. I've created some anticipation. Thing is, maybe it waits a minute. I want to see something coming out of that box. What's going to happen? And then it might wobble again to kind of get us even more interested. I want to do a second wobble. So allow me to use this opportunity to push the point of a pause again, right? If it wobbles, and wobbles, and wobbles, wobbles, I'm not going to build any kind of suspense. If it wobbles and waits, and then wobbles again, By the third time it moves, I'm expecting a wobble, but it's not gonna. It's gonna do something else. So this is what I want to do. Let's create a pause first. Yes, Juliana.
I think I lost you because I'm like alt tabbing between the screens. Can you show me the can you show me the 4 frames again? Like how you rotated them?
These? Yeah. I'm gonna do it. Give me a second here.
Okay.
I'm gonna clear my keyframes. So I didn't change the length of the timeline. I just took the keyframes out. So I had this object here. I went to frame 15 and I F6'd it. But this is a pause, so I'm not going to do anything to this one. Just a pause. I went 2 frames over because I wanted to tilt, and I F6'd again. This one, I'm using the transform tool on. But you know something? I want to just mention, let me back up one more time. What I should have done at the beginning was made sure this was here. That's what I should have done. They all should have it at the bottom. I'm using the transform tool to move it. That would have been the smartest way. Then when I went to 15 and F6'd, it would be the same. I went 2 frames over now to start the wobble. F6. I just move it to the right. I go 2 frames more. F6. Move it to the left. So here's a pause. And then it goes right. Then it goes left. I'm going to go 2 frames more to set it upright. 2 frames more. I F6. Then I'm going to rotate it so it's upright again. Did that help, Juliana?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I want another pause. So let's go another 10, 15 frames. I think we should go, let's just go out to frame 35. And F6. More frames is more time. So here it got upright and it stays upright all the way to frame 35. In other words, the audience is wondering, is something going to happen or not? I want to do the wobble again from here. So 35 is the same and I'm not going to touch it. I F6'd over here. I go 2 frames further, F6 again. And I'm going to bring that a little to the right. Then 2 frames further, I F6 again. And I bring it a little to the left. I'm going to want it to get upright before it tries to launch into the air. So I'm going to go 2 more frames. It's exactly what we did last time. And I'm going to make it straight. Why not play this movie? That little pause between them was really short. So I just want to say something about that. Today we have a lot to do, and I don't want to keep on changing the timeline, but I've been really fascinated with how much time creates tension. You know, so if like 15 frames going at 24 frames a second, 12 frames is a half a second. That's a half a second pause. It's like one miss. I didn't even get to say Mississippi. Not a lot of suspense. I probably would have waited an entire second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds before it wobbled again. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. They're still watching the box. 3 Mississippi. Whoop. Right now, let's just leave it. Okay. So here's where we are. It got upright again for the second time. I want another pause, right? I'm only going to go 15 frames again. I'm about frame 55, and I'm going to F6. The psychology of suspense, you know, it's a very interesting subject, but right now I don't want huge gaps on the timeline. Now, I don't want to move this one or it won't be a pause. If I, look, I want to show you something. If I did something to it now, this won't be a pause, right? Something will be happening, right? That's not what I want. So I better Command Z it. F6'd over here to just leave it. So I blew it. I have a way to fix it though. Give me a moment. All right. So this is a pause. Nothing's happening. So you went down the timeline, you F6'd. Now what we want to do is prepare for a launch. We're going to use squash and stretch. So bear with me for a minute. If you were going to jump, I don't know if this is going to show on camera. I'm going to try. This is where I landed. Anyway, but if you were going to jump, you'd probably do this. Now you might just go, whoa, but you might rev up. You might go, whoa. Second time, I doubt you do it a third time, but you could. And then you jump. So our box can't crouch, but it sure can squash. All right, so I want to do some squashing. So here's the pause, right? I want that squash to be a little slower than the wobbles were. We were going 2 frames at a time. Let's go 5 frames further and F6 again. This is important stuff. It has a lot to do with squash and stretch from the movie earlier today. So it's thinking about jumping, right? So it's essentially crouching. I'd like you to squash it. Now I want to say something about squashing an object. Its mass has to be accounted for. You squeeze a water balloon and things just start to pop out the sides. So that basically means if you squash, you better widen it. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the object shrunk, right? And things don't really do that, not much. So what this should look like is this. Here's a little wobble, then there's the squash. 1 wobble, 2 wobbles, squash. Why don't you play your movie for a minute? Well, let's take a quick, folks, let's be smart about this. Can everyone save? Let's do file menu save. You can call it whatever you like. File menu save. I'm going to call this one box jumps. Box jumps. I'm in the habit of using the date 3/5/21. I'm going to put it on the desktop for now and save it. At least you know you're covered, right? If you crash. I'm also going to look at a SWIF right now. So I've been holding down Command, tap return to get that little preview as the SWIF. So what I do like is the object feels alive and clearly something's going on, right? That squash though, is it preparing to take a leap? So here I am back, and this is where we left off, the squash. Now, I think it should unsquash, right? Because just thinking about jumping, didn't really jump yet. I want to borrow your imagination for a minute. I'm going to go another few frames over, right? And it doesn't have to be 5 frames. Maybe this is slower than the way up. So I think I'll go just 2 or 3 frames over and F6 it. Now, here's the only problem with this approach. If you F6 now, you're going to have to guess what the original size was. And I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to Command Z until that keyframe that I just made goes away. Right? I just Command Z a couple times. I'm back. This is the squash. Can't I copy one of the ones that are upright? Guys, listen, this is a technical thing, right? But it does save a lot of time. There's a lot of ways I could copy an earlier object, right? One of them is I can option drag the keyframe that represents the one I prefer. This is a squashed one, but the one before it was the actual shape of the object. Good morning, afternoon. So this is the squashed one. The one before wasn't squashed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that keyframe, hold down Option or Alt right here, and drag the keyframe where I want it. The only reason I did that is I didn't want to eyeball getting the box to its proper shape. So now here it squashes and it comes back up. I'm going to do that last part again because I know everyone's going at different speeds. It's one of the challenges of this class. If you ever want to borrow a keyframe because it has the artwork just the right size or just the right shape or just the right position on the stage, steal the keyframe, right? One way is just to option drag it. I'm option dragging it. I'm leaping right over this one, going right through it actually, and dropping it off where I want it. Questions for me? All right. So every now and then, please rewind and either scrub it to see where you're at or just play the whole thing. As you could tell, we're almost out of time on the timeline, right? Because we started with 3 seconds. I think it's probably a good time to just add more. This is going to take a lot more, but I think we should do is just go a little bit at a time so the timeline's not huge. Could you all come out to 6 seconds with me? F5, both layers, or just insert frame. I'm not putting artwork there, so don't put in a keyframe, just a frame, pure time. And go to the lower layer and do the exact same thing. So the floor doesn't disappear. And then please back up to where you were. By the way, about backing up, there is a little scroll bar at the bottom of the timeline, which is kind of cool, right? Touchpads let you just use the touchpad to go back and forth if you're on a laptop. So we added time with F5. We're at 6 seconds, and I'm backing up to this object here, my very last keyframe. I think we should do that again. I really think that it thought about leaping. It's going to, do it again. So let's see here. It squashes, comes back up. Let's create another pause. Right? So I'm going to give it maybe 15 frames, roughly speaking. I'm going up to 80 for a pause, and I'm going to F6 it. Remember, if this object in frame 60 is exactly as the earlier keyframe, nothing happens. It's essentially a pause. So this was the last one. We went down the timeline to about frame 80 and we F6'd again. I think what we'll do is let that be the one trial run. This next one will actually be the squeeze it uses to launch it. So maybe it's going to be even more dramatic, really flatten out when it squashes. All right, just be sure you know where you are. This is the same as the brand new one. It's after this where the change would happen. If you squash now, it's just going to keep doing it. There won't be a pause. All right, so I'm going to go 5 frames further and F6 it. And I'm going to do a big squash. Getting ready to leap, and I better stretch it so it doesn't feel like it shrunk. All right, I want to confide in you about something I'm working out in my own work. This thing is going to leap rather quickly because that's what we want, the sense of speed, right? Until it's off screen. It's going to be above the stage. There's one thing about the way I've been doing it that makes me really uncomfortable. It's so big now and its shape is so weird that it's going to actually get smaller on the way up unless I figure out a workaround. Some artists have an intermediary step and some do not. I want to share what I mean and we'll see if we like it. We'll just do what we can with it. Here's the idea. Let's try it this way. It's going to tween right away now as it stretches back out and comes all the way to the top. We better zoom out before we go further. I need this area up here available. All right. So how long should it take? Thing is, it's not a long distance to travel. When we were making things bounce off the walls the last couple of weeks, we were doing it by 15s, but that felt kind of like this. What if I want you? So it's hard to say. 3 frames, 4 frames? I'm going to go with 4 frames. All right, so let's go 4 frames down. F6 it again. And here's what goes on. And let's bring this above the stage. it? Ladies, do you need this room? Because I could take off. Oh, the museum? Oh, my family's going to the museum without me. I feel like I haven't left the house in a year. Oh, bring me a postcard. You don't have to. The Met. I'm sure a lot of you have been to the Met. You know, those of you who've not been there, you know it's a donation. You can go there and give them a quarter if you're feeling broke, but it will blow your mind if you haven't been there. Anyway. All right. Thing is, if we do it now, it does leap into the air, but it's the wrong shape. Right? So that one that you just put on top, go to the keyframe. I think this one we're going to eyeball. Try to get it back to the shape you expect. It's hard to tell because it's so fast, right? But it's returning to its original shape on the way up. I'd like you to save right now because I want to preview this together and I don't want to lose this much work, right? So save again. And I'm going to preview. So that leap, it's okay. It doesn't feel quite right, but it's close. There's a couple different things I can do. One, should it be quicker? Do I really want the keyframes even closer? Possibly. Maybe I want some easing, right? Now I want to say something about easing and gravity. This has not come up before, right? If you propel something into the air with great force, like out of a gun, right? If you shot a bullet into the air, what would it happen while it reached its apex? Wouldn't it slow down before it fell back down? So it would be shot out of the gun rather quickly, but gravity all the time is trying to pull it back down. Eventually it slows up because gravity's pulling it down and then it drops. So that basically means that that was an ease out. It slowed down at the end. Ease out means slow down at the end. Gravity's fighting with this box. So I'm going to try some ease out. The thing is, it's only a few frames long, so I'm not sure it's going to really produce results. Logically, it should, but it's just so fast. Will I even see it? I'm going to try. So here's that gap while it's on the way up. This is the part that I'm talking about easing. I'm going to click between the two keyframes, like we've been doing earlier today. Just be sure you're in the right two. I'm coming over to easing, and I'm making the argument that this would ease out as gravity starts to win the battle. Ease out. How extreme it should be, I really don't know. I've been playing with this one a lot lately, Quint. And I'm going to hit return. I'm being very honest. I really don't know if this is going to produce results in a 3-4 frame zone. You know, even while I can't sense the detail of it, it does feel much more convincing to me. I'm keeping it. You guys holding up? You know, one thing I want to say is, man, am I so pleased to be videotaping these. This is one of my favorite Classic Tween. Excellent. This is one of my favorite Classic Tween demonstrations, really, because we're getting much more nitty gritty than we did before. We had about a month of preparation. We really couldn't have done this any sooner, right? But again, if anyone's not feeling comfortable with it, but you really want it bad, right? Watch the video. You know, fast forward till you get to the good stuff. All right. All right. We got to make it fall, though. So I want to say something about that. I want some serious anticipation. You know, how many movies have you seen where it's like someone forgets something was launched in the air? And then, like, you know, a little while later, right? So this is really what I'm after. How long should that thing be up in the air? I don't know. But I would definitely say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. It's probably not enough, right? That's 3 seconds, 72 frames right there. 4 Mississippi, I don't know. Let's just go with 80 frames. It isn't really that dramatic, but I think it'll suit us for today. I'm about on frame 90 myself. I'm adding about 80, so it's going to be 3.5 seconds about of waiting. So I'm going to go all the way 80 frames further. That's 170. So here's a whole second. Here's another whole second. Here's another second. So here's frame 170. I'm going to F5 them both. Truth of it is, though, that just extended the timeline. That thing's up in the air. I'm going to need more keyframes going forward. So let's make it longer. Just remember 170, right? We're going to need it. I'm going to explain it. But let's go ahead and add, let's go out to 100 while we're here. This is sorry, 200, I meant to say. F5 again. I'm just making room for us. It's hard to do this wrong. You just want enough room that you don't feel cramped by a lack of time. Ha! All right. So we extended the timeline, but I really just left that thing up in the air, hanging there, right? As I was saying, I wanted to go 80 frames further to actually take some action. We just added time, but no keyframes yet. This is when I want to go to 170. So I'm going out to 170 here, and I'm going to F6. This is going to be a pause, folks, the longest pause of the movie. I want to show you something. That object launched into the air, and here it stopped. It's floating above the stage. Your audience won't be able to see it. 80 frames later, I F6'd again. So way over here, it's still up in the air. And please leave it, because that's the pause. Afterward, we're going to make it fall. How long should it fall? How long does it need? What do we do, 3 or 4 frames to make it launch, right? So it's going to be about that, maybe even less. This idea that gravity's making it plummet like a meteor. Christian's good at meteor, so he might know more about how to do this time-wise. But let's go ahead. So here I am way out here. It's still hovering in the air. I'm just going to go 4 frames further. That may be too much even. And I'm going to F6 again. Guys, can I say something to you? I hope this isn't too brave of me. I'm sticking with F6 today just because it makes everyone feel stable. We're starting to get it. But in the earlier demonstrations today, once there was a purple line there, we knew it was a classic tween. We were just moving the playhead and then dragging the object. It made its own keyframe. So I've been avoiding it now because I thought I might confuse you, right? Some people prefer to go put the playhead where they want, then F6, then move it. Some people feel like that's enough. This is when I want it. I'm just going to drag it. I'm holding down Shift to make sure it doesn't wiggle left and right. And it made the keyframe for me. I'm going to repeat that. If you find it more grounding to click here, F6 first to see the keyframe, then move it, continue to do it. That's the way I was raised in my own animation efforts, like that. But more recently, it started to let you do this. If the tween was turned on, you didn't have to. You just got the playhead to the same position and just move it. Let the program make the keyframe. They're actually exactly the same. It's really about how you like to work. Whatever you find comforting, less confusing. Now it's on the floor. It's obviously going to squash like mad when it gets down there, right? But right now, I just want to see what would happen. Can everybody save your movie? If you think it's a good time to preview it, preview it. Ooh, got a couple things to fix. I want to watch that one more time. I kind of like the amount of time it stayed up in the air. I'm pretty happy with that. Did you notice that mine didn't land in the exact same spot it was to begin with? You know, that might bother you, it might not. If it doesn't bother you, ignore me now. If it does bother you, I want to talk about some fixes for it. You know, I would have liked it if that thing hit the exact same spot it started the movie in, right? And there's a lot of ways to do it. I don't want to option drag all the way from frame 1. That's a mile away. I could steal that frame, right? I want to show you something else. This is optional, guys. If you're too far away to option drag, I just want to say goodbye to my family, right? Bye, family. Have a great time at the museum. Bye. Yeah. Say goodbye to my class. Bye. Hey, Jade. Bye. Oh, it's windy. The Zoom universe. The Zoomiverse is so weird. All right. All I'm talking about is one simple thing right now. If it bothers you that this box is not in the same position as it was when we started, here it was when we started, we could fix that by going to frame 1 and stealing it. And it will matter if you want this to loop. These are fun looping. The thing just jumps, comes down, waits a little while, does it again. You know, it's pretty weird and hypnotic. If you like that idea, let's steal frame 1 with a new technique. To borrow a frame, because it's got everything you want in it, go to that frame on the timeline, frame 1 of the box layer, control click and choose this amazing feature, copy frame. It's copied to memory, which basically means I can go somewhere else, even in a different movie, and paste frame. Different layer. I'm going to go back because I'm being really picky. I'm finding my very last frame. This is the one that gave me the trouble, right? I'm going to click on that frame and I'm going to choose paste frame. And it replaced the frame that was there. I could do that anywhere, right? But I was only concerned here. So now it's actually come down to exact size and position it was originally. We better save again. I do want some more squashing to happen and maybe a little more wobbling, right? We only have a little bit of time, so I better pick carefully about what I'm going to do. But you should preview it if you made that last change to see what I mean about the loop. When it lands, it's just going to sit there, wait, and start the whole movie again. So it literally looks like one frantic box that just keeps doing the same routines over and over again. So I have a perfect seamless loop because of that last maneuver. All right, squash and stretch. When does the squash happen? After impact, right? It hit the ground. Right now is when it squashes. You drop an egg on a floor, it's not squashing in the air on the way down, right? So here we hit the ground. Let's make it squash just a couple frames later. It's a quick splat. So I'm going 2 frames over, 3 maybe, and I'm going to F6 again because I'm not changing location. Juliana, I got the sense you were feeling me when I was talking about when to F6 or not. This case I have to because I'm not moving the object anywhere. It won't make a keyframe for me unless I move it. There's the keyframe, but I don't want to move it, right? So here it hit the ground. I go 2 frames over. I'm going to F6 to make my own keyframe, squash. Another 2 frames over, roughly, I want it to return to its shape, unsquash, right? I could do it by eye, F6 here and do it by eye, but you know I don't want to. If I've got something nearby that's correct, like this one, I'll steal it and put it here. I know I'm hitting hard today. I'm going to option drag this one because it's so nearby. If it was far away, I would do copy frame again. It's the same exact thing. I could come here and paste it, but that's more work. Since it's nearby, I don't have to do that. I could just find the one that represents the one I want and option drag instead. Option copies a frame, and so does the menu technique, copy and paste. You know, they're both very handy. So here's the end of that little squash. Could you save what you're doing? I'm going to preview this. I just want to mention a couple possibilities for taking this further. Up in the air it goes. I wait, falls, and it squashes. You know, in all honesty, there are days when I'll spend a half an hour after that last squash because the object clearly wouldn't be that stable. You know, it would probably, you know, it would probably bounce. Do we have time for a bounce? I got 17 minutes. I think I'm going to try to do a quick bounce, right? And then let everybody go. So we are very much doing what they called straight ahead in the movie earlier. We're figuring it out as we go. If that object was going to bounce, the question is at what point? It's squashed in the last keyframe, so it would have to bounce right away, right? That means this one we just made is the right shape. But what if we took it and put it in the air? So the squash comes down, the thing comes down, it squashes, and then because of that, it bounces in the air again, but a little way. You know, we're all going to feel differently about this. You know, is your box made of rubber, or is your box made of cardboard? Is it made of brick? I don't know, right? So that's going to affect how you feel about it. So this is up in the air. It obviously has to come back down. I'm going to go a couple frames over and bring it back to the floor. I could carry, now because I'm moving it, I don't have to make a keyframe. Again, if you're more comfortable F6ing first, do. And here it is back on the floor. So we're going to really vary on this. That was one bounce, which looks a lot better. Kind of makes you wonder whether you want it to bounce again, right? This is really up to each of us. If you do make it bounce again, I'd suggest half the height. Each time it bounces, it's going to reduce and, you know, until it's stable again. So this is how high I went. If I wanted to bounce again, I'll go 2 seconds over. Should this squash a little? Maybe a little. I'm going to go 2 frames over. F6 it. Little bounce this time. Maybe unsquish it. And then I want to have come down to the floor. I got to say, each time it hits the floor, I'm feeling more confident stealing an earlier one because I really don't remember its natural size. So I'm going to see if any of these look like the right one. This one looks like one I want. You could F6 and do it by eye. I'm just not that good at that. So I'm going to steal this one. Option drag this. So I got a double bounce. That was pretty good. I'm going to save it. You could see how nuanced this can get. You know, you could keep on going back and tweaking this thing until it feels to you like it's breathing, you know, like it's just a real thing, box or not, you know. I know myself, if it wasn't almost 12:30, I'd want to go back to the trembling we started the movie with. You know, let it boing, boing, then finally it stops. You know, I think right now I'm going to stop. Does anybody have any questions for me? That might be the dumb question that I'm asking. Yeah,
there was a question in the chat.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Let me just take a quick look. Thank you. Did I lose Tiffany? Oh, there she is. She's been having a lot of internet problems lately. Lots of helpful stuff in the chat, by the way. I was peeking at it on the break. People were really helpful. We have made it spin as it fell. You know, that's a really good idea, actually, to have it spin as it falls. I would show you how easy that is. Let's go back to the very first time, right after it first falls. So here it is in the air. I hit return to stop just now, by the way. So this must be that long pause in the air. And here's the fall. I'm glad you asked me an easy one. All right. To make an object rotate with the classic tween is really easy. You have two choices. You could take either keyframe and rotate the object, or you could actually tell it to spin. Now the question was, make it spin. So I want to be very clear about what that means to us. This is rotation, and I'll use it for falling objects often. They might go back and forth, especially on a windy day. Spinning is more mechanical. You know, a car wheel is definitely not plane rotation. It's spinning. This one's hard to say which is better. I think I'm going to show you both. If I went to the beginning of the fall and I manually rotated it, that's the keyframe on the axis on the bottom is making this. I'm not sure I'm going to like this. So let me be the guinea pig. Yeah, it came down. It is spinning, but it's hard to tell, right? So if I gave it more time, you'd really be able to see that that worked. I'm hesitant to do that right now, but you could tell. I'm going to go frame by frame. That was subtle. It's only because there's 5 frames there, it's hard to see it. But I could go ahead and just Command Z that, show you the other way. Let me just fix this manually. So this is where we were when it started, roughly. So say I hadn't touched that. You could click between keyframes in a classic tween and just ask the computer to rotate it. So you're clicking right in that falling segment. You go to the properties palette, and there's something cool there. Rotate. Go to rotate, pick clockwise or counterclockwise. You could tell it how many times to rotate. But I got to tell you, this is like, what is this? Like 1/4 of a second? So I wouldn't go putting high numbers in there. I'm going to let it stay 1. And let's just see if we could even feel it at all. I'm going to stretch my timeline out. Give me a minute. I want to show you something. Oh, that was a weird rotation. Oh, I caused so much trouble. I caused the trouble because I messed with that rotation point before to show you an option. I definitely went too far. So it's rotating, but it's really doing something wild on the way down. I think it's because of what I did up here. Let me see if I could think of a good way to fix it. Just give me a minute. I'm going to copy this last keyframe for a minute. Let's see, notice this? Sorry, give me a minute, guys. I really blew it. So I know it's kind of cool looking, but it's definitely not what I was asked for. So just give me 1 minute. Here's the pause. I caused trouble by messing with this keyframe when I shouldn't have. Putting give me a second here. I'm just starting over a bit on that. All right. So here's what it looked like before. I just slowed it down so you could see the spin work. If I click in between now, rotate is here, clockwise, and I'm leaving it at 1, it'll come straight down. It should have. Folks, I really don't know what's causing that. If I take it back. I don't know if you're having that. Are you guys having the same thing? Is anybody trying this? Squiggling around like the wind came out of nowhere. Now I really have to think about what's causing it. I've done a lot of rotation. We're going to return to this subject anyway, but I don't like it. So I'm just not going to fight with it right now. I'm going to Command Z.
Professor, is it the axis point?
You know, the thing is, I would have thought, but see this axis point here and this one here, they're in the same spot. So that, I thought that was the problem. But maybe if I turn the rotation off now that I fixed it and start over. This is in the air with nothing fancy. This is down here with nothing fancy. Rotation clockwise. Is it going left and right again? Wow, that is weird. Yeah, I really don't know what's causing it. Let me just turn it off then. None. And I'm going to go with the earlier method. I'm just going to rotate this one It's off screen, no one will know, right? I know this looks a little weird. I'm going to center it. And again, this is an access point issue. So right now I'm a little surprised that it's being this complicated. Oh man, I really created something. This is a bad teaching moment. Rotation is off. I'm going to Command Z that. I'm going to try one more daring thing though, because we're pretty much done for today. I'm going to just try to get this back the way that it was. This is where I was. I Command Z'd a bunch of times. You know, I'm resistant to having two keyframes with the axis point in different positions because of weird stuff like that. But even though I'm trying to fix it and I can't find the error, it does feel like an axis point problem. I'm going to do something I usually would never do. And I think it's not going to work, but I'm going to do the experiment in front of you anyway. I'm going to move the axis point now and see what happens if this one up here, which seems to be causing the trouble, has the axis point in the middle. This could be a disaster because this one here has it at the bottom. But let's see. Nothing. Well, I put it in the middle, but I didn't move it, which means it's time to stop. Here, I'm going to rotate it. There was in the air. Here it is on the floor. That's not right. Guys, I do apologize for that. I really don't know what's causing it. I'm going to give it some thought. We're going to be doing more of this, so I don't really mind. You know, I want to say to you something about this class as it is. I do my best to find systems that are reliable. But as any artist knows, that only goes so far. I really don't mind having things break during class as long as the larger themes succeed, because we have to get into trouble, you know, to figure out how this is. I know if I was working on a client, for a client right now, I'd be pretty pissed off because I've made things rotate millions of times and I have to figure out why this one's misbehaving. I still stand by on what I said earlier. I could take one end and rotate it so it has to get to its normal location later. This is what I was thinking. I'll just do a small one here. Got a box. It's a symbol. I turn it on my Classic Tween, and I'm going to have it fall right over here. All right, ta-da. I could now come up here and rotate it a little. This is what I was trying to do with our cube. And look what happens. Right? That's a pretty cool rotation, very believable. That's what I expected to happen. But the other method that I suggested, let me just Command Z, right? So it's back to normal. The other method was to tell it to spin. So I clicked in the middle and I kept on trying to use the rotate feature. And I'll even exaggerate it. Here it is with 3 spins. Very different. I'll come over here and turn the spin off. So again, I always have that choice. I can manually rotate, let it do its thing. See, it's funny, this version's clearly having a problem. I just did the same thing twice and it's misbehaving. I got to look at it. You got the gist of it, right? So I got to look at it. There was a glitch just now again. This feature's not changed in many, many years, but the program has grown a lot. So it's possible something funky happened. There's always a workaround. Anyway, guys, I hope today's class was good for you by and large. You know, we hit most of the bases. This is an exercise really worth repeating. I'm pretty pleased that it's all going to be on video later today. It's a long class. I don't think people are racing to take a class twice. But I do say if you're feeling lost, let the dust settle, get some rest, find some time when you could possibly be alone and try it again. You're all aiming toward very complex animations. And I just want to end the class by saying, frame by frame animation would have made this take much, much longer. And I was talking and explaining, but once you repeated this a few times, this whole exercise would be maybe an hour's worth of work, the entire exercise. And if you did it frame by frame, you're now talking about dealing with, what were we up to? A couple hundred frames. It would have really taken forever. So I'm hoping that Classic Tween is becoming appealing. Before you guys take off, I do want to double check the handout. Slow in for us is ease in. Slow out is ease out. We played with both. We did a bunch of squash and stretch and all kinds of things to do with timing and anticipation. Didn't do anything with arcs today. It was a very vertical experience. I think next week, and I knew I wasn't going to do this, I wanted to work with Leaves and a Breeze to talk about rotation, strangely. So I'm kind of glad to have bumped into these problems before we tried that assignment. I have to see if there is a glitch or if the glitch is in here, which I'm feeling glitchy. So it could just be me. All right. Homework. I want you to make 2 balls bounce in a single animation using Classic Tweening. But what's important is I want you to make them relate in some important way. So they're going to have to be on separate layers. I want to say something about that. If the 2 balls just bounce, that's not really relating. If they bounce off each other, they're relating. If one bounces on top of the other, secondary action, that's relating. None of those ideas are altogether that easy. It's a chance to actually explore what you learned today. I want Classic Tweening for those 2 balls. If you want to do more than 2, just be sure you get the hang of it before you get that ambitious. Do you need a story? That's up to you, right? But I want it to be interesting based on how they relate. I want to point out something that we made things interesting earlier today. By using scale and all kinds of properties. So 2 balls relating to each other should surely be able to be interesting, right? I mean, really, scale is one thing I would seriously consider. Not only is one ball larger than the other, perhaps, but maybe one gets closer to the screen while the other one doesn't. Hard to say. Anyway, have fun with it, right? Use as many layers as you want. I'm only requiring the basic 2, but frankly, we're looking for art here, a little bit of excitement, so you're likely to need more layers. Look, if you have to take off, please do. I took attendance already, right? Remember, I do respond to emails about 4 times a week, 4 days a week. I don't respond on weekends. That I don't do. So feel free to reach out to me. There's also ways to reach out to Tiffany on the handout, as well as her office hours. I think some of them are beginning now, as I understand it. Any questions for me about the homework or about the class? Nobody?
Nah, nothing.
No. How many of you guys have a class after this?
Bing asks, can you explain a little more about the homework?
A little more about the homework. Well, not really. I want classic tweens. I want 2 balls to bounce, and I want them to relate. And that might be the word. Folks, it's an art class, So if I'm being vague, I'm being intentionally vague. I want you to explore yourself within the requirement. So those of you who are addicted to frame by frame, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you see this event in your head. What should go on? I'm the client. I don't know, right? We sell balls. The idea is we want 2 balls to do something surprising as though they have some life to them, right? If you want to phrase your question more clearly, then I'll talk more about it. Yeah. I think about being confused in my class. I get that from a lot of people. Folks, if you're in a poetry class and I say, write a poem about trees, you're not going to say, can you tell me more? So yeah, I'm kind of asking on that level. But if your question is something else, let me know what you're confused with. I'm looking at the chats too. About the relate, can you show some example? Here's a ball, here's another ball. They're just related. These are not relating. Here's another relationship. The balls are rolling. This one goes, blah, takes the other ball away. One falls through a hole. You know, I don't have time now to look, or I'd show you samples, but here's a cool one. Someone just drew these vertical lines floating, and they had their ball kind of leap across and another ball leaping across them. And here and there, they'd leap at the same time and hit. And it was almost like a pinball machine. A pinball machine, the ball relates to all the flippers. In this case, the balls relate to each other. I'm sorry, that's the best that I could do right now. Let's see how the homework goes, right? And in a weird way, I want to see what you come up with. So I think I've said enough for now, right? Folks, I do have to take off. Bing, I hope that you could just wing it a little bit and see if you can make something work. I think some people concerned with high grades always want to know what the teacher's thinking. Now, the teacher's a blank slate. I want to see what you're thinking. So I'm putting the ball back in your court. Here it comes, relating with you. Folks, have a great weekend. I hope you get some rest, right? Let's all be glad that Q was wrong. Some of you got that joke.
All right, then. Take care, Professor.
Thank you. See you guys. Have a great weekend. Yeah, I could stick around, Mikey. I
just had a quick question.
A couple minutes. Sure.
Really quickly, I submitted the first assignment, but I didn't get a grade, so I didn't know if I didn't do it properly or
probably not. I didn't get it, Mikey. I wrote you an email.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I actually write you? Because I'm dealing with sorry, I'm dealing with the tech people right now about it. I'm locked out of my CUNY email, but I can access Blackboard, so I'm not getting student emails. I'm just.
Oh, I see. So, Mike, listen, I'll tell you now, because it's you know, shooting's trustworthy. Just you and me. I didn't get any homework from you.
Oh, because remember you we looked it over and you were like, this is the most abstract one that I received.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So I gave you 2 homeworks, and oh, you can't get into Blackboard?
Well, yeah, so no, I checked Blackboard, but I didn't get a grade for that first one, for the abstract one. And then the second one I wasn't able to do because I was waiting for the new keyboard. I remember I touched base with you last week about they didn't have any, so I had to order one because they were trying to tell me to bring back the computer and get a Mac, and I wasn't trying to.
I figured it had to be something like that, you know. So you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to mark you late. But you know what would be helpful to me, since I seem to have a hard time finding it, if you still have that homework, could you just upload it again to the Google Drive?
I do, absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to double check because I remember you were saying that it was I remember you said it was like the most abstract out of all of them.
Yeah, you reminded me now. Yeah, so I definitely did see it. The mistake's clearly on my end.
No problem. So I guess I'll resubmit it into not the late one, but the regular one.
Just drop it in the Google Drive. Don't put it in any folder.
Okay, and then
I'll take it.
And then as far as the one that was due last week, I understand that it's late, but again, I just I could send you like the emails about the keyboards and everything.
Oh, I trust you. I trust you. My only concern is you're so intelligent and you're obviously creative. You've been looking at the art. And if you have that many technical problems, then I'm worried for you.
Now I'm good. I mean, now I have everything that I need. So it was just more of touching base with you and just letting you know why I haven't been able to.
So when do you think I'm going to get that work?
I would like to get it to you. I would like to get both of them to you before the end of next week. So like Wednesday. So like hopefully I would like to get the first one to you by Wednesday, and then obviously the other one before class next Friday. The second.
That's a perfect plan. Yeah, don't worry about it.
And then today I'll re-upload that the first assignment. So you have that.
That'd be great, Mike. Yeah, I'll remember this conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's the perfect plan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it.
And by the way, I actually ordered that book on the break, the animation book you suggested. So I have it.
Just rocks. It really rocks. It's dizzying, you know. So it's like I wouldn't read the whole thing. I'd pick a chunk that interests you, really focus on it.
And then kind of go.
I'm so interested in what he has to say about body movement, human body movement. I think the guy really qualifies as genius.
I'm excited to read about it.
It's just shocking. All right, I better run. I got a class.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll see you next
week. Have a good weekend, Mikey.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Goodbye, YouTube.